Hey everyone, welcome back to the most exciting Art of War tier list ever. That's right, we have 10th edition in its totality right here at our fingertips. We got the data sheets, we got the rules, we got the missions, we got everything, and now we have the points. And you know what that means? Now we have all the information we need to tell you exactly how good everything in this game is with 100% certainty and no speculation at all.
No speculation, no impressions. This is based on thousands and thousands of games. We've been playing 10th edition for 10 years. Don't worry about it. Okay.
That's actually not true at all. This is pretty speculative. It's all very, first impressionistic type of ranking. But for those of you who don't know what we're doing here, we are a competitively focused Warhammer channel, and we are going to be ranking every army in Warhammer, not based on its coolness, its aesthetic, its lore, or any of that stuff. Simply on what we believe its competitive potential is. Now, obviously, we don't have tournament results, and we don't have tons and tons of games as to back this data up with. But based on our, Siegs and I probably have 30 plus years of playing Warhammer experience and 3 ITC championships between us. Based on that kind of expertise, we are going to try to place all these armies as best as we can amongst this tier.
Yeah, we have been playing as many games as possible with the new rules just to try and get a sense of all the different matchups and how these armies fare. So it is going to be based largely off of that. I know you had some games played at Kansas City as well. So we're going to try and base it on our experience as much as possible. But some, we haven't played every matchup multiple times to try and get, refined versions of every single list.
But you know what? Where you can find us playing matchups multiple times in real time with you as we all learn this edition together? In the War Rooms. The War Room is our really cool membership area where we have tons and tons of content specifically tailored about helping you learn the game and become your best. Basically, we want to help you get better at Warhammer. So we're going to do tons of streaming coaching matches. They're already starting to release. We have GSC versus Custodes up there.
Yes, it is.
We got a couple other ones, and we got 3 per week releasing on repeat, so don't you go anywhere. In addition to that, we got amazing faction fundamentals, so you can start to learn the basics of your factions, and then even going up to master classes where we teach you the most advanced stuff as we figure it out in real time.
Definitely. So those are all coming later this month, and then into the next month. On top of that, we have State of the Faction breakdowns that'll be coming, which is going to go deep analysis on every single faction, especially the lists that we're running, how the lists work, how they function, how you maximize them on the tabletop. So if you want to check that out, in the description below, thewarroom.vhx.tv. There's a 3-day free trial. Check it out. There's a lot of people in there, and you also join our amazing community. Our Discord community is popping since 10th edition was released, so tons and tons of activity. If you want a group of gamers who are like-minded, go ahead and check that community out.
Absolutely. So do us a favor, if you like this video, like the video, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us keep producing this kind of content and reaching more gamers just like you with it. And then finally, let us know in the comments what you think of this tier list. Let us know if you think we're right, we're wrong, we're left, we're right, we're sideways, what you think about your factions and what you'd like to see changed and implemented about this game. Tell us what you're excited about. So let us all know. Check out the War Room and grab a beer, grab some popcorn, just relax, because we're going to break down all the armies in Warhammer for you. But before we do, we got to break down Knobs Burger's $5 super chat. What is the best army and why is it Orks? Stay cunning, boys. The best army is obviously Orks, because they are the brutalist and the cunningest. And for those of you who haven't seen, Siegs and Jack did an entire breakdown of the Ork data sheets. So you can go check that out to learn all the Orky goodness out there.
Definitely. Thanks so much for the super chat. If you want to super chat throughout the stream, ask us any questions you can. We're going to save all the super chats towards the end once we've gone through all the factions and then go through them all at once. So if we don't answer them immediately, don't you guys worry. We'll be answering them in just a little bit.
Awesome.
All right. You guys all ready for this tier list?
I'm ready, Siegs.
Ready, Nick?
Where are we starting it out with?
We're going to be starting out with Tyranids.
Tyranids! Tyranid time!
All right, so Tyranids is obviously in the starter box. They've got a lot of new models. I played against them a handful of times. John is pretty excited about them. So their main army mechanics are, I say they're middling. Yeah. They try and interact with Battle Shock. There's a once per game where you just force everything to take Battle Shock tests. It's interesting. There are a couple ways to manipulate it with certain units, but overall, it's not the most impactful thing I have found. On top of that, their ability to get certain, precision or lethal hits or sustained hits against certain targets, it's strong. But at the same time, Tyranids have a lot of data sheets, I think, that kind of miss the mark and don't do enough for their points. So they're really pigeonholed, I think, into trying to flood the board with enough big, durable stuff. So things like Carnifexes with Old One Eye are really good. I've seen things like the Tyrannifex, as well as Exocrines. Just a lot of big monsters that are hard for you to get through in a couple turns. A lot of armies don't have a ton of anti-tank accessible to them. And then finally, you also have things like Zoanthropes are outstanding. They are the main anti-tank tool, and they're relatively fast and have that sweet infantry keyword and fly to be able to go through buildings. I found that those are the key in the middle of the table where Tyranids can put a lot of firepower out. I think they're leaning heavier and heavier on shooting rather than their old style of sending fast combat units across the table to go blow something up.
Yeah, I really think Tyranids they have so many data sheets, right? They have like a gajillion data sheets in that codex. Some of them are going to miss the mark and some of them are going to be awesome. But if you look at the things that really work in that codex, there's a lot of big beef, like you said, if you run tons of monsters, and Harspex is awesome, Zoanthropes, like you were mentioning. There's a lot of power there. And then they have a lot of tricky mission play as well. Lictors are really good for that. Gaunt's coming back to life is really good for that. The Turvagon. There's just a lot of kind of janky stuff you can do to supplement your ability to score points and deny your opponent points. All in all, it's not a super broken stat check codex like it could be, and it's also not a super fast, janky mission thing like it used to be either. It is, I would say, relatively balanced, personally.
Yeah, I personally lean towards relatively balanced. Obviously, you know, there are things in there that are flawed, but I don't think the codex as a whole is completely flawed. Like, it's a good fundamentals. It's probably what a lot of factions should be.
Right. That. It's got, like, I don't love the fact that Shadows in the Warp is not the most impactful army rule. There's things I would improve about it, but overall, from a power level perspective, I think it's a pretty balanced book.
All right, let's go ahead and throw it in relatively balanced for now, and then we could always drop it down if we think that it doesn't compare to the other ones we place in that tier.
Yeah, we can always rearrange these as we go, and we probably will.
Almost certainly will. All right, next up we have Black Templars. Okay, so this is a named Space Marine chapter. They can access the Gladius detachment, which we'll talk about more in depth when we get to Space Marines. But basically, Gladius is all the rules you could possibly ever want for an army. Black Templars, on the other hand, they get their vows. And one of the stronger combos there is accessing multiple bricks of Neophytes, their kind of unique infantry unit, with 5 of Pain. Having tons of Primaris bodies with 5 of Pain can be a lot. It's very good primary control. It forces out your opponent's anti-tank into your infantry models, which is very good. And then on top of that, they have a boatload of attacks. You can put out an insane amount of chainsword attacks into a lot of things and just force your opponent to take tons of saves. So volume is still king.
How's their durability looking? Because Space Marines, they have offense for days. If you can go combat, you can go shooting. It really doesn't matter once you combine Oath of the Moment along with, or Seal of Oath rather, with all these doctrines and whatnot. The power level goes crazy. But what about their defense?
So their defense is the reason that you want to lean towards them. I think it's a little similar to Dark Angels. If you want to ramp up the extra defensive mechanics of both of these Marine subfactions, you're going to want to lean on their unique rules. However, if you want to go for pure efficiency, you can still just take the Gladius detachment and have an amazing time. So
I think that's one of the things we're going to be seeing with a lot of the Space Marine chapters is like, so Gladius, just to get it out of the way, gives you the access to choosing advance and shoot for your army, and fall back and charge for your army, or fall back and shoot as well, or advance and charge. So basically, and you can rotate through these and choose them when you want to. So there's no reason you'll ever be not doing what you want to be doing. And overall, that's just an amazing army rule. Like, it says everything you could want your army to do. It basically doesn't follow the fundamental rules of 40k. So that's just very strong as a baseline.
Those are doctrines, and then you have Oath of Moment for full rerolls to hit and wound against a target.
Boy.
And if you have somebody like Gilliman hanging around, you could do 2 instances.
You know, they have all the same data sheets as all the other Space Marine chapters. So, like, taking 10 Desolators, slamming Oath of Moment on something every turn, saying my indirect fire is going to murder you. That's just really good.
Yeah, we played Necrons versus Space Marines on stream last week, and guess what? Oath of Moment was just on a target every single turn, and I was taking blistering firepower, even on an army known for its defense.
So what's interesting is I was in a similar boat where I was playing against Jack, and he was playing with Blood Angels, and he took Oath of the Moment and did 10 Desolators and put it on my Shalaxi, Big Keeper of Greater Demon of Secrets. We'll get to Demons in a bit here. And she just tanked it, because she's awesome. So it's not like the end-all, be-all of firepower, which we will get to, but I think it would be remiss not to put Black Templars at least at very strong.
Yeah. Baseline, just being a Marine in this edition with access to the Gladius detachment puts you in very strong.
Space Marines are very strong. It's really that simple.
Yep.
Beyond that, we can get into the chapters specifically, and it might go up from there, but very strong with just Space Marine stats.
Yep. Yeah. So let's leave the Black Templars for now. Like I said, you can pick and choose, but I think people will more often not lean on Gladius.
So now we're getting to the best faction in the entire game, Chaos Demons. Everyone knows they're the coolest. You can take Fate Weaver and 3 Lords of Change. Is this real? Put it in that tier right now. Is it real, Seeks?
Is it real?
I'm going to put it there if you don't.
All right, I'll put it at...
Get your screenshots. Get your screenshots right now because that's where it belongs. No, Demons are a cool faction. They have a lot of interesting things. Ironically, their HQ section, or the character section now, is just... forever. Like when I write lists, I find I just have 12 to 1,500 points in characters. Because the greater demons are pretty affordable, and their lone operative characters like the Changeling, the Blue Scribes, and Mass, they're all very good as well. Mm-hmm. And then you have some great data sheets like Blood Crushers, and Flamers. Nurglings are pretty cheap. Blue Horrors are interesting. Skull Cannons cause battle shocks. There's just a lot of good stuff going on Demons. Now, it's not perfect. Like, if the troops are kind of overcosted in a lot of places. Some of the data sheets are just kind of terrible. Fiends are, I don't know why they cost 50 points a model. YGWY. But overall, Be'lakor helping you not being shot from Alpha Strikes is an amazing ability. Shadows of Chaos is interesting, challenging to play with, and challenging to play around, and it's a high skill ceiling army. And then, as well, it can be a bit of a stat check. Like, your monsters can just run people right over. I would say it's a very strong codex as well. It's got some issues. I don't think it's competing with the highest levels of the competition here, but it's very strong.
It's very strong. We've played a couple games, you and me, versus your Demons, and every single time, those big monsters hit like absolute trains. You've got, like, Shalaxi is ridiculous.
Shalaxi's amazing.
One of the strongest data sheets out there. Being able to reroll against monster, vehicle, or character units is insane because guess what? Those are by far the toughest. And with characters going inside units, it makes it so easy to just get those rerolls all the time.
Greater Demons just being baseline toughness 10, 4-up, invul 20 wounds, give or take.
Feel no pain.
Feel no pain on the Slanesh ones. I don't know why Slanesh is the most durable god. That's just not what they do.
By like a dramatic margin.
Yeah, it's, you know, I'm not here to judge. But I am here to take advantage of. So the Demons... I've played a couple games with Demons so far, and they were going toe-to-toe pretty even pace with Space Marines. So I feel like they belong in that tier.
All right, let's go ahead and throw Demons up there.
And Fate Weaver's the best. Can we put them in front of the Black Templars? I will not be behind Jack's Templars.
That's heresy.
No,
that's heresy. We'll readjust them at the end.
We're going to readjust it right now.
All right, so that's the Demons here. And like I said, we're going to come back towards the end and readjust these. We got Blood Angels next, another Space Marine chapter. Once again, they can access the Gladius detachment, and that's just baseline good. But let's talk about their unique stuff.
So they get +1 strength and attack on the charge. That's pretty unique.
They do. It's no longer when you're charged, so it's not quite as good as the old version was. However, their characters are amazing.
Yes.
Blood Angels have some of the strongest characters in the game. Now, you don't want to just run 7-8 characters and have not a lot of units left, but their characters are outstanding. Sanguinor being able to come in from reserve, fight first, he hits like a truck. He's outstanding. You've got things like Tycho the Lost. Tycho, you've never even heard of Tycho. Mm-hmm. He is actually amazing in a Big Brick of Death company.
Fun fact, Siegs, in 4th edition, I played Tycho joined to 10 Terminators, and he gave them functionally advanced in charge. Didn't really exist back then, but that's how it worked. And you know what? He was awesome.
He is actually good again, the Lost version, not the regular one. And
more fun facts. I didn't actually paint his armor like armor. I painted him like it was skin, so he had full flesh.
He must have looked.
It was a whole thing.
Oh god.
Anyways,
those
characters.
Those Nick armies. So Death Company themselves, very efficient. They can be used MSU. You could have one pop out of the Rhino, hit the center of the board, and smack things really hard. Ball Predators are nice tech pieces to interact with the Overwatch stratagem. But at the end of the day, one of the things Marines do best is they shoot. Marines shoot. Marines have some of the most efficient guns in the game, especially when you throw the Gladius buffs on there. So Blood Angels are in a weird spot. They are a good combat army, but combat, I feel, is a little bit less effective in 10th edition than shooting.
Yeah.
I think you want to run as many guns as possible. If you have access to amazing indirect fire, you want to run that indirect fire. You want to give it rerolls. So Blood Angels are in the weird spot where, yes, they are one of the better combat armies in general, because they have a lot of tricks to make that effective. But if you're running guns as Space Marines, why are you running Blood Angels?
Yeah.
Is the problem they come up against. Is like you want to run, 10, 20, 30 Desolation Marines, some Thunderfire cannons, Whirlwinds. That's not Blood Angels. That's not benefiting any of the Blood Angel unique rules.
But still, they have amazing data sheets like Death Company. I mean, Death Company with jump packs, Death Company on foot. Like, it doesn't really matter. You take both. Jack was wearing 16s of Death Company. I mean, with double chaplains. That was awesome. He did pack in 10 Desolators. It can be a more combat-centric Marine army. And by putting in the token 10 Desolators and having access to Oath of the Moment, you already put someone on the back foot to have to come towards you. And 10th edition in general is a more active mission set. You do have to be proactive about the game, otherwise you're just going to fall behind on the scoreboard endlessly. So having to walk towards the Blood Angel of your army is not the best. Now, I do agree with you, like melee, comparatively, I think it's not even that melee is worse, actually. Like there's a lot of talk about the minutia to the charge phase isn't there. It's still there. It's a little harder to pull off, but that's that's not the issue. The issue is that most of the weapons in melee are still like strength 8, like power fists. And tanks are just toughness 10 now.
They just don't punch up.
They don't punch up as well. But if there's one of the few combat armies that can actually punch up, it's still Blood Angels. So I think if someone's going to attempt being a good combat faction, Blood Angels do it pretty well. Like I said, Space Marines are just kind of baseline very strong. I think it's just a different side graze flavor style of Space Marine army.
Yeah. Because they're going to be competing with the other chapters, I think that at the end of the day, Gladius is going to be the stronger way to go. I'm going to put them in at the top relatively balanced, even though their Gladius version is very strong, because it's just you're running Gladius with all the Marine stuff. I'm going to put Blood Angels as their unique rules here.
I can get behind that, yeah, because if we just take, like, regular Space Marines Gladius force and then add the Death Company data sheet, are we really playing Blood Angels?
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, I get you. Okay, so then we've got the Adeptus Custodes, the Golden Boys. Talk about a powerhouse of a faction. Holy Bojangles.
You just played against them.
I experienced. So
did you know?
I didn't know they just reroll wounds if you're standing on an objective. Huh, what a great rule. My army gone. And then Jack was running a triple break list of 3 big 10-man units of the guards. And, it is pretty good, pretty effective. But that's not their only build. You can do the bike-based build that moves in your opponent's turn. No one wants to be moved on in their own turn. That's not where it's good. It's so strong. Such a strong army.
Yeah, we haven't even seen what Forge World's going to bring to Custodes. That's not going to be... Every time Custodes loves Forge World stuff. Yeah. So, baseline, their Codex has amazing access. They're super efficient. They have a lot of durable stuff that can stand on objectives, so they're amazing on missions like Sites of Power, where you want a character on an objective in No Man's Land. Well, guess what? Custodes are just going to sit there all game. They have amazing fight phase manipulation, especially when you try and engage them on objectives.
Just fight first when your opponent charges me. Trajan just does it. They have it for a stratagem. You know what? Fight first is an amazing rule now. It basically auto wins the combat matchup right there. Now, if I charge a unit with fights first, and it's my turn, obviously, because I'm charging somebody, guess what? They're going to fight first. And you know what? I don't think the 10-man Custodes Guard unit is going to mess up killing whatever I charged them with.
No, they're going to smack you into oblivion. And you might have the dregs of a unit left, but probably not.
So they're not without weaknesses. They do still have very little in the way of trash, and you can ally in Imperial Agents, which help a lot. But if you can get through those relatively soft and squishy Imperial Agents, they will struggle with tactical objectives and just completing their secondary game plan. That said, they are so dominant at scoring primary, it's almost irrelevant just because of shifting them is nearly impossible. OC3 all over the place, can't really fail battle shocks in any meaningful way. They don't stop, and they will kill you. It was so alarming to find Custodes was not only the combat army that it obviously is, but it's a potent shooting army as well.
Yeah, it's a full toolkit. Like you said, Imperial Agents add a lot there. That's where you're taking those Exaction Squads, the Voids Men-at-Arms, whatever it is. Just cheap things that can come in and score you your tactical objectives if you choose to do that. Assassins are really good. I like the Calidus Assassin for Custodes, being able to CP manipulate your opponent, make their key strats more expensive, and also to go back into reserve, get into their backfield, score points. I think Custodes are a full toolkit. I think the fact that they kept 4 up Feel No Pain,
that's what I was about to bring up,
is that you're going to see the very top armies have devastating wounds all over the place, usually comboed with the anti-rule, so that they proc on easier than just 6s. And having mortal protection is pretty critical when you're going to see the armies that we put at the top 2 tiers. So Custodes having a 4-up Feel No Pain against that, massively important.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think it actually is mathematically better to be dev wounded by something as a Custodes because you get the 4-up Feel No Pain instead of just getting a 4-up invul. It breaks the damage down into increments instead of here's a binary you take d6 plus 2, for example. So Custodes actually take dev wounds better than everybody else in the game. They're amazing at primary. They're so durable and offensive. They even have speed these days. Like, they're a full package. The only thing they don't have is access to cheap stuff, and then the Imperial Agents Codex just fixes that.
Yep.
This would be S tier. This really would be.
This would be, I think it is very, let's put it at very strong for now.
It's not very strong.
All right.
It is better than Demons and Black Templars.
We'll see.
This would be S tier. If this isn't S tier, what is? We'll get to it.
All right.
Chaos Space Marines is next. Okay, so Chaos Space Marines is a deep codex. Talk about another book with like a gajillion data sheets. Not all of them are awesome. Not all of them are great. Doesn't matter. We're going to talk about the potential of this army. So there's a few cool really combos that we've spotted already. Like Abaddon joined to 10 Terminators, granting the 10 Terminators all 5 keywords, Nurgle, Khorne, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, and Undivided. Means you can basically get lethal hits on 5s, shooting close combat, sustained hits on 5, shooting close combat, dev wounds with full reroll hits, full reroll wounds. It's total package of devastation. Nurgle Strap means you can't shoot at it if it's more than 12 inches away. Slaanesh gives it access to advance and charge and fall back and charge. And Khorne just kills stuff harder. Fight on death. So how do you even interact with that? Well, you don't really. It's just going to keep happening to you. And then there's so many things you can support it with. Possessed are amazing with Mark of Undivided. They have dev wounds. Everyone knows the combination of rerolling hits for sustained hits for a lot of hits, then rerolling wounds for 6 to wound on dev wounds is just tons of damage. Wombo combos. The Forge Fiend, again, Mark of Undivided, reroll hits, reroll wounds, is equally potent at killing vehicles as it is infantry. It is a 3D 3-shot blast weapon with a 3 ectoplasmic cannons, strength 10, AP 3 damage, reroll hits, reroll wounds, blast. So against a vehicle, it's like 6 shots, 6 hits, 5 wounds, AP 3 damage, and against a unit of like 20 infantry, it's 18 shots, exploding 6s, averages 21 dead infantry. It's insane. yeah. Sieg's giggling over here.
No, it's one of that Possessed Break is one of the few things that can just delete a Necron warrior unit in the game.
yeah. And then, I mean, that's already such a challenge, right? How do you handle Necron warriors? That's like a win condition for them. Possessed Terminators, they just go do it. And then let's not even forget about my favorite unit, the Accursed Cultists with the Dark Commune. That unit, again, it can get marks, it can get the Traitors Astartes keywords, so it can get lethal hits and sustained hits and all that jazz. With marks, you can get that stuff triggering on 5s. It can advance and charge with the Dark Commune, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. And you know what's crazy, Siegs?
This is all crazy.
You know what's crazy? Even crazier, the Torments. The big dudes in that unit, they hit literally as hard as Possessed. They don't have dev wounds, but the stat line is otherwise identical. And on top of that, they heal not just in my command phase, but also in your command phase. So you know what? I'm not dying. I'm not going anywhere. I'm shooting you with my Forge Fiend, my Terminators. You come near me. I'm a Chaos Army. Good luck. This army, it's amazing. It's amazing. I really like it.
Where do you think it should go?
I think it's very strong. I don't think it's Custodes strong, literally because like I would charge a Custodes army that would fight first and kick my ass. It would be a challenge. But I think it's a great army. I really do.
Do you think it's better than
I think it's about as good as Demons, and I think Demons and Chaos Space Marines are better than Black Templars.
All right, let's go ahead and put it like that.
Well, why are Demons the back of the bus here? Why don't we put Demons in the front of very strong? Because the Fate Weaver is the best. I don't know,
Space Marines.
Fate Weaver is the best. Fate Weaver.
All right.
And the best thing about Chaos Space Marines that is like so no one is talking about, Cypher, the lone operative who makes the strat cost more for your opponent, can be stacked with the allied in Fate Weaver. So you know what? 2 different names on those rules. We're going to make your one really important strat cost 3 CP. Get wrecked.
That is important. Now, Nick has done that to me, and I'm like, all right, save him for that 3 CP strat. Not going to use anything else. I'm not tempted by that CP reroll.
You will be.
Nick is the type of man to do when it costs 2 CP on that mission roll, he's still going to 2 CP
I did
that
it 3
CP.
times.
Yeah, I know you did.
You did. You watched it.
I watched it. I watched it.
I won that game.
Unbelievable. All right,
Knights.
next up we've got the
down.
Forces of the Grey Knights. So Grey Knights have one of the best suites of stratagems in the game, specifically Missive Deimos, which is when you end a move, a normal move, advance, fallback, within 9 inches of one of their units, if it has the Deep Strike ability, which is most of their army, it can just go back into reserve. And then the next turn, they come down 3.1 away with a stratagem. Well, not from that strat, but from other strats. And from the teleport assault rule, where they can put units back into reserve at the end of your opponent's turn, bring them down on your reinforcement step. The mobility of this army is off the charts. Now, they are very elite. They're pretty expensive. And then their damage output is not really great into the durable units in the game. So they don't do outrageous damage. They have some very interesting defensive mechanics. The librarians can put out mortal wounds, and their combat is solid. But I think overall, their main thing is that they play the mission supremely well, and they can force you to overcommit into MSU units and then try and overwhelm you or get into your backfield. And they force screening for every single turn of the game, which has always been a very powerful thing. There's going to be a lot of elite armies in the meta, armies that are just like, I'm going to be, 4 to 7 units that are all durable and move up the table. And you're like, I'm going to be everywhere but those places.
Absolutely. I think their teleportation rule is really the best thing about the Codex. The ability to play the missions superiorly well because they can just kind of go anywhere at any time. They also hit you where you can't take it. So as the game devolves and naturally progresses, you lose your screens, you have to go to certain spots, your units become a little bit exposed. And from a linear army that kind of walks across the table at you, you only have to fight in one front. Mm-hmm. On Grey Knights, you have to fight all fronts all the time. And that can be very stressful as a player because there's so much to keep track of and think about. And it's stressful on your army because it's like, I don't have dudes to do all this stuff. Like, go get a tactical mission, fight on primary, actually go kill something screen. Keep that up for 5 turns, you're just not going to be able to. That's going to be where the skill comes in. So an average player with Grey Knights might struggle with the lack of raw offense that they bring.
Yep.
But a great player with Grey Knights can take advantage of all those little nooks and crannies that your opponent maybe didn't see coming.
Yeah, CP is massively important for this army. I found that the incinerators are by far their best weapon, so the Overwatch plays that you can do, you can force your opponent, come down 3.1 away, blow a unit up. If your opponent wants to get close to you to potentially charge you, you could either Overwatch or go back into reserve with Mr. Deimos, or you could do both of them. They have Sigil of Exigence. They can come in turn 1 with First to the Fray. It's just a jank tank of an army. But like you said, the damage output is going to struggle against, I think, the top armies. Mm-hmm. And they only have a few ways for mortal wound protection. On top of that, there are a couple armies in the game that have feel no pains against psychic abilities and psychic weapons. That could also be a difficult potential for Grey Knights if those things are popular. So I personally, they're Imperium, so they can access allies like a Freeblade Castellan or cheat like Inquisitors, or also just cheap resources from the retinue units. So I personally think that even though their rules themselves, especially the stratagems, are very strong, they are a flawed choice because they fundamentally lack anti-tank. And guess what? Tanks have never been stronger in 40k, and armies that run multiple durable units, Grey Knights are going to struggle against. They're going to try and contest objectives and get into their backfield and take them off where they can, but they're against those bowling ball type armies, it is going to be hard to actually combat them.
Yeah.
So I think Grey Knights are honestly a flawed choice based on what I've seen. Really? Not to say that they're weak or bad. It's that you're going to have to really dramatically outplay an opponent who just shoves 3 big knights and a bunch of armatures up the table.
I imagine this is a pretty controversial choice. I feel like a lot of people see that army rule and just kind of see the durability they bring to the table and would assume they're a very strong army, at least relatively balanced. So you're saying like that lack of raw damage and all that and lack of cheap stuff is just flawed?
I think especially when you see the armies above them, that they just have tools all over the place for doing damage. And Grey Knights don't have those tools.
Yeah. One of the things I do find is, especially in the early stage of the edition, before we figure out all the nuanced, the what you don't know, essentially, the tricks and tips of the edition, a lot of it is just raw power, kind of getting engaged of what stuff does, how stuff works. And the very early stages, which this absolutely is, if you're short on raw power, you have to play the mission to succeed. And in 9th edition, that was a known quantity. I brought low power offense lists all the time, just played the mission really well. But in 10th, it's harder to play the mission well because, 1, it's so much more variable, and 2, right now we don't really know how everything works. So, like, how can you create arbitrary win conditions for yourself when someone is just tabling you? You have to fight that problem off first. So, yeah, I agree. Right now, Grey Knights, they could move around as the meta develops more. I think a nuanced player that really finds the tricks and tips could maybe progress that from a flawed army to a very strong army, but the army does have flaws, absolutely.
Yeah, it just can't kill big stuff quick enough, which you can't really afford that right now. So I'm definitely going to be playing tons of games with Grey Knights. I think if this Grey Knight book existed in 9th edition, it'd be one of the strongest books, period.
Yeah.
But here it is.
Talking about strongest books, period. I don't know if that we can apply that to the next army, but we can say that Drukhari has gone through a pretty significant identity change from being a very fast, mobile combat army that with advances and charges, hits on twos and kills everything. It doesn't do that anymore. It's actually baby soft in close combat. Pretty much combat irrelevant. There are some characters that are fine, like Lilith is okay. Drazar and Incubi is like tolerable. Largely speaking, you are a shooting army. You take pain tokens, you give your army reroll hits, and I promise you, if you take a couple of Chronoses, you take your Archon, Succubus, Homunculus, even if you skip one of those characters, you're going to end up with a plethora of pain tokens. And especially if you take Rax, too. They just give you pain tokens also. So it's just, pain token town. So
It really is. No, it's pain token, like, city, like, mega complex.
yeah, it's pain token, like, structure, So your army's just going to reroll hits, and Dark Lances have gotten ludicrously cheap. You take 3 Ravagers with Dark Lances, you take 3 Scourges with Dark Lances, that's your baseline. From there, you can use the tips and tricks like taking 2 10-man warrior units, or taking a 10-man warrior, taking 2 Venoms and a Raider, and you put all of the Dark Lance, Blaster, Blast Pistol, Shredder, and Splinter Cannon all in one Raider, 5 Idiots in the Venom, and do that twice. So you have 10 guys, 2 Dark Lances, 2 Blasters, 2 Blast Pistols, 2 Shredders, 2 Splinter Cannons, in one Raider, also toting a Dark Lance. 1 CP, or 1, not even CP.
Pain token.
One pain token, which again, that is an infinite resource. We are going to reroll hits on that whole thing. So now your army is literally mobile, firepower out the wazoo. Scourges just have Fire and Fade written on their data sheet. Let's not forget, your warriors all have this really cool ability on their data sheet. It says your objectives are sticky. Even if you're in a transport, the transport makes it sticky. So you don't actually have to control your objectives. You can shot right off them. Who cares? You can actually make your plan move block your entire army by suiciding it at your opponent for 3-4 turns while shooting them with Dark Lances. And, your opponent couldn't get to your objectives that you were holding with nothing but air. So, yeah, I guess you win.
So when people think of Drukhari, they think of an army that has a handful of guns on their transports, but is mostly a combat army.
Right.
They're not a combat army anymore. Not in my opinion.
Not even a little.
I played a lot of games against them. Pain tokens are insane, but it's their shooting that puts them over the edge. The Dark Lance, like Nick said, actually is a very good anti-tank weapon. You've got Scourges that are just peeking out, shooting, getting back behind terrain, or coming in from reserve and getting angles, and doing devastating damage, along with all these transports with the Dark Lances. The firepower of this army and the speed of it is very strong, but their combat is relatively mediocre. But guess what? They don't need it. Like Nick said, they can control objectives from in their transports, and they are very good at picking up your opponent's resources on the flank and forcing, kind of funneling you into the center of the table and just playing around that.
Right. I'm pretty torn on where to stack this army up. I think it's flawed because it skips the combat phases section of the game. I think that's not a great identity for it. It's trying to be Tau all of a sudden. I think it's kind of balanced because its shooting is so oppressive that if its combat was also very good, it would just be broken. So, it is kind of balanced in a very unbalanced way. And I think it is very strong, because I've watched it play, I played with it, and it's just very strong. It's a good army. I think it can hang with Demons and CSM and them. If I had to put it amongst these, I don't know. I honestly think it's flawed, but also not, again, because it's so raw powerful. I think it is very strong. I think it's just, it's missing a phase. I don't know. Where do you want to put it?
The games that I played against it, it's enormously efficient. I think its big struggle comes against armies that are non-interactive. So armies that either have indirect fire. I think Drukhari still struggle against that because Scourges are a big part of their strategy. And when they're picked off easily, it can be a problem. And especially against armies that can get into their backfield at the same time. So with Deep Strike reserve threats. I agree with that. I think they're relatively balanced. Pain tokens are insane.
Yeah.
They're an insane mechanic.
They have so much going for them and so much not going for them that it's almost like two opposite ends of a scale that balance together.
I think they're relatively balanced. I think their combat could use a bit of a buff, but I think pain tokens should not be quite as strong as they are.
Yeah. Or like the platforms for Dark Lances could see a little bit of a points race.
Especially the interaction with making firing deck. 1 pain token, 2 units inside, and the transport full rerolls to hit on all those anti-tank weapons.
And sticky objectives for that army is just such an amazing rule. Because it's the kind of army that likes to leave its objectives and get tabled, and now you can afford to.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about something that maybe...
I already want to put Tyranids down, one with Grey Knights.
You want to bring Tyranids down?
I already want to bring them down to flawed.
Yeah, I mean, when you put Drukhari and Blood Angels in relatively balanced, Tyranids are not
Yeah, I think
relatively
Tyranids need to
balanced.
just like immediately go down.
Oh, right.
We'll readjust in a second. Oh, speaking of an army that's flawed, everybody's been waiting for this moment.
Everybody's waiting for this moment. So,
all right, so first of all, they're up here, okay?
You'll notice that we have an interesting tier system, right? We have Is This Real as our highest category, all the way down to YGWY. And now we've added a new word to that category, again.
Again.
Because they just can't help themselves. I don't know why. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to all the Death Guard players of the world.
There's a distinct hatred for this faction.
Look, I don't even know if it's tied to Death Guard. The Nurgle Demons section of the Demon Codex also is awful, so maybe they just don't like Papa Nurgle. Maybe someone at GW got sick. I don't really know. The plague is coming.
It's basically like you design an army, and you say, with your philosophy, this army shouldn't just do anything. Okay, first of all, it shouldn't have any design philosophy. It should just be a collection of data sheets, all of which do basically nothing. This army is horrendous. I have played against it a couple times now with the bad factions and easily beat it.
So we put on stream. You can catch us live, not live. You can catch it pre-recorded in the War Room now. We put Quentin's Death Guard in a Sieg's Plan AdMech, and you know
we haven't released it yet, but yeah,
okay.
It's going to be released. Spoilers.
And
we're like, these are two bad armies. They can play against each other.
Who can play these armies? You know, they can play each other. They really can't. Like this is.
They can't. Votann are dramatically better than them. He could barely kill like 3 or 4 Hearthguard, let alone the rest of the army.
So let's just talk about this. Death Guard isn't faction identity. Or like we're slow but we're tough. We're slow but purposeful.
Yeah,
so
and
tough. How do they represent that? By giving them +1 toughness in a game where the toughness bracket is now like enormously big. So like +1 toughness is literally irrelevant as weapons are just strength 10 nowadays. So they used to be -1 damage. Now you could spend 2 CP to do that.
Which would be a very strong mechanic to have because very few data sheets have it nowadays. And on top of that, the mortal wounds in the game is also very high at the top with devastating wounds in the anti-combo. There's a lot of units that can proc mortals very easily. They also just don't have mortal protection.
We've got no mortal protection, and we definitely got the slow part right. Our Death Guard Terminators move 4 now because 5 was too fast.
It was quite speedy.
So compared to like our regular cousins, every other Space Marine in the game, we have +1 toughness, and we have -1 to 2 move. And those two things aren't really equal. We say 40k often on this channel is won and lost in the movement of the game. Mm-hmm. And -2 move is quite the nerf. And +1 toughness is quite the irrelevant. But it's okay, it's okay. Death Guard have a lot of unique data sheets to help them out, right? Like the Plagueburst Crawler is actually quite a good tank. Blow drones are not terrible. And
that's where it ends.
Right, so okay, I'm done with that section. But it's okay, because the baseline Chaos Space Marine data sheets are fun, right? Like Warp Talons and we don't get any of that stuff. So we can ally in our demons, just the Nurgle ones. Oh, I already told you that those were terrible, so we get Nurglings. They have OC0. We can add that to our Death Guard army so that we have forward infiltrating screens. Awesome. Yeah.
The one benefit that they have is that they can access 3 Brigands from Chaos Knights.
Right.
And every time I played against it, the 3 Brigands plus, and then secondarily, the Plagueburst Crawlers have been the only units that did anything whatsoever.
The best Death Guard list that I can theorize is probably 3 Chaos Knights, 500 points of Demons, and only 1,000 points of Death Guard.
Yeah, and even that, like, if you could run less than 1,000 points of Death Guard in a Death Guard army, you totally would.
This is like to check a box to say I'm a Death Guard player, if that's what you're into. I like Death Guard. I'm a Chaos guy at heart, and I feel for this faction. I think they're really cool. I literally own a Death Guard army, and I'm YGWY again. That's I have no other questions.
It is designed especially for Death Guard, but I think we might squeeze another faction in there. But Death Guard is the poster child of what is this army about? What is it supposed to be doing? Why does it exist? I don't know. But it effectively does nothing. People are mentioning Mortarion. He hits like a wet noodle. I literally ignored him with my Votann army, killed everything else, and then was like, all right, I guess I'll kill Mortarion now. And I gave him 2 Judgment tokens.
Mortarion is like so soft. Like, everything is tougher than Mortarion. Everything hits harder than Mortarion.
Magnus did so much wrong, and yet he is twice as tough as Mortarion.
Shalaxi, the demon character that is like a Slanesh greater demon, not a Primarch, and also Slanesh, the fragile god, is tougher and hits harder. What?
Matt, it was in fact the Mortarion Land Raider build. I killed the Land Raider, all the Plague Marines inside, and started killing other stuff.
See, we're getting all super chats at the end, so
I know. It was Matto, though. It was Matto.
It was Matto. Okay, so we got Deathwatch over here. I'm sorry, Death Guard, but I can't spend more time on you. I just can't. Pour one out. F's in the chat for Death Guard.
F's in the chat for the Death Guard.
Okay.
Okay, Deathwatch came out with their index, which was going to end up here, because they had an interaction where they would give dev wounds to a weapon that was, or anti-infantry 2+ to a weapon that had dev wounds access. And you could do it on multiple kill teams, and you put out a crazy volume of fire. You could do like something more than 70 mortal wounds in a turn, like easily.
Yeah.
Games Workshop was like, okay, didn't see that one, gone. Get it out of here. To their credit, amazingly effective. They were just like, this combo can't exist. It's going to break the game, so gone. Get it out of there. So Deathwatch now are a Space Marine chapter that has a lot of interesting, unique rules. They have access to teleporting. Their kill teams are just efficient tools. They really like Stern Guard as well. They're an amazing anti-infantry army that can then bring anti-tank on top of it. I think they still like the Gladius detachment as well, because they can access it. But this is just the poster childs of efficient Marines. They're not quite the same over the top because they can't do that combo anymore, but they're still just baseline very strong Marines.
John and I did the preview datasheet deep dive, so if you go back and check out our YouTube channel, you can see all of our datasheet takes on all the factions. John and I did the Deathwatch, and during that whole thing, I was literally losing it about anti Deathwatch. Thankfully, G-Dubs just came out of the gate right as soon as that they caught that, and they're like, you know what, that's not what we intended. We're fixing that.
Literally 24 hours.
It's amazing turnaround time. Very impressed with that. And you know what? I still think they're great. Throughout the whole thing, I was like, forget the anti-dev wounds combo with the Hellfire rounds. That thing is just messed up. But beyond that, it's a great codex. You still get hyper-efficient Marine shooting in an already shooting dominant faction.
I personally think that they're at the top of very strong. I don't know if they would be S tier. They're close.
They can have that conversation. I don't know. I agree. I would put them at top of very strong. I actually don't think Marines are like amazing. Their rules are great. They have great data sheets. But what's holding them back is the traditional style with which they play the game. They just try to like walk and be better than you. And the top armies of the game don't play that kind of 40k. And that, I think, really holds Marines back.
I think Custodes do. So it'll be interesting with that conversation. Well,
Custodes don't even, though. Like, they still teleport at weird times and move in your turn. They still don't play the traditional style.
All right, we'll leave it as that for now. And then we'll we
can. I agree. They're definitely in the conversation for would-be S tier, but I think they're just very strong.
All right, we got Chaos Knights.
Chaos Knights.
So Knights in general are one of the massive beneficiaries of the increased toughness on vehicles in the game.
Yeah.
So their basic bodies are T10 now. They still can access the 4-up invuln. They've got access to easy access to cover now, which was something that didn't exist in the previous edition. And they have massively efficient shooting platforms, especially the Brigands and Chaos Knights. BS2 is a major buff, and then they actually have legitimate anti-tanks, so they can shoot back into other vehicles while being very durable themselves. There's a handful of armies in the game that didn't get their weapons scaled up very much, or only have 1 or 2 anti-tank weapons in low volume of fire. It's going to be a struggle to deal with this many kind of huge, very tough bodies. So tell us about the Chaos Knights.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much hit the nail on the head. Their stats on their actual armatures are kind of unimpressive. Their big knights are still big knights. Towering keyword is absurd. So that's all still there. But what ultimately the Chaos Knights do that is unique to them as opposed to Imperial Knight cousins is that they force your opponent to take battle shocks often, all the time, and at negative modifiers. Stacks also with demons, because then you could take even more battle shocks with skull cannons, blue hearts, given an aura of -1 leadership. There's a couple other ways you can also create battle shocks, and even the Burning Chariot has a place because it gives your Chaos Knights ignores cover on all those shooting attacks. Ultimately, it's like a very hard stat check army with all this beef built into like these toughness 10 and toughness 12 profiles that really just have enormously high OC values and battle shock you so that you are not controlling objectives. They struggle with missions, but those demon allies help a ton because they give you access to all this fast, cheap, deep strike stuff that you can just slot in for virtually just the cost of them. And they synergize super well. So Chaos Knights on their own, I think they're a little bit flawed, a little bit stat checky. But with demon allies, they become a little bit more of a functional army. I would say they're relatively balanced. I would say they're behind Drukhari and Blood Angels, though. I think they're weaker than both of those. Okay. But I think they're stronger than Tyranids and Grey Knights, personally.
Yeah, I think the toughness, the raw stats that they have are very annoying to deal with, but I agree that they probably want to lean towards allies. They don't have the raw crazy damage that some of the units in the Imperial Knights Codex get.
Without the allies, they have 2 data sheets functionally, Little Knights and Big Knights, and you can only go so far with those options unless your stats are like actually broken and you just kill everybody.
Yeah, I think the big difference between them and Imperial Knights is the fact that Imperial Knights do the Big Knights better, and Big Knights are very hard for a lot of armies to kill, and they really like buffs because it's one big giant 400-point model that just blows things up. Chaos Knights have okay Big Knights. Their strength is in the Brigands and the smaller Knights. So, and that's not quite as strong, I think, in this edition as it was previously with House Herpetrax. But they're still a very solid faction, I think.
I agree.
Definitely upper half.
You know what's another solid faction? Perhaps upper half even? The Space Marines. The good old boys in blue.
We've already mentioned them a couple times because they're the baseline of all the named Space Marine chapters. But, okay, first of all, easy access to rerolls. There are less rerolls in the game, and then Space Marines are like, less rerolls. Then we got more rerolls. We got rerolls everywhere.
This is my favorite thing about the entire release. Games Workshop is like, okay, design philosophies for 10th edition, everybody. Fewer rerolls in the game. Preview number 1, Oath the Moment, Space Marines. What?
They must have meant that there were fewer reroll 1s to hit abilities, because there are fewer
The captain doesn't do what the captain used to do.
But rerolls in the game are insane. It's mostly you get full rerolls for the
Yeah, reroll the wound for Custodes standing objective, reroll everything for Space Marines because tokens. They said so. The reroll hits for the entire Drukhari faction. Like, I don't know.
So, full rerolls to hit and wounds. You can pick a target, and then with Gilman, if you kill that first target, you can then get a second one, which is insane, but this is turn after turn. Any key unit your opponent has, that big knight that you really need to kill, boom, full rerolls to hit and wound. It's amazing. And then the doctrines themselves give your army incredible flexibility. They're only once per game now, each of them, but Nick already mentioned being able to fall back, shoot, and charge, being able to advance and shoot, and being able to advance and charge. All really good abilities, game-defining abilities, and there are ways to switch units into those doctrines as needed, as you saw in the Space Marine game that we played last week. So, Army's amazingly flexible. On top of that, they have some of the best indirect fire in the game. Desolation Marines are ridiculous. They basically ignore the downside of indirect fire, and then they have access to rerolls.
Yeah. They have so many cheap, amazing data sheets to help them do mission stuff. They have so much combat potential in their Blade Guard and units like that with the Judiciar. That's not even get started on Desolators. I've seen lists that just start with 30 Desolators, and it just makes me want to vomit. This army... The indirect fire that this army provides already was taking it a tier up in 9th edition, and it only got better in 10th somehow.
It got much better.
It got much better. I actually don't think Space Marines on their own without Desolators is like super duper oppressive, but like with Desolators it becomes a different beast. That said, it's kind of like softer Deathwatch in my mind, because it's literally just like a shooting balanced Space Marine army. Deathwatch is made of the same stuff, but Deathwatch shoots harder.
Space Marines are definitely S tier, so if we're saying...
You think they're S tier?
100%.
Compared to Deathwatch, though?
Then
Deathwatch is moving up. Fine, I'm good with that. They can all move up together.
Their army mechanics are vastly better than almost every other single army. They delete things with ease, and they have a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
the thing is, they're not that elite. They have so many resources on the board, and like I said, the indirect fire is oppressive. The fact that Whirlwinds, Thunderfire Cannons, you saw the -2 to move on my Warriors,
oh my God,
crippled my army.
Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. They have a lot of utility baked in as well to their super stat package. I'm with it. Put this would be S tier. I agree.
I'm gonna drop Custodes over here.
Okay, if you think Space Marines are better than Custodes, that's fine.
I do.
Okay.
I think they have way more resources.
I just feel like Custodes invalidating the combat phase is quite the...
I think the shooting outweighs combat.
Okay.
Personally.
So
but I think they're both all very strong.
So we actually have like a pretty balanced game so far in terms of like it's like a square and then Death Guard.
Don't worry, we'll even it out. We'll even it out.
So we've got Genestealer Cult coming up next. These guys are my forearmed friends, and they're actually really cool and awesome. So there's been a lot of ambiguity about the power level of their rule. Their rule basically means their army comes back to life. I played with it now. And I can tell you it's a great rule, and it can definitely feel like you have way too much stuff, and the mechanics for coming back basically are do whatever you like. There's no, you have to be X inches from the blip, so you can string 20 dudes 40 inches that way and really just control an objective. So you can place your blips very safely. It is an ability that shifts in power based on your opponent. So I used it against Jack's Custodes, and he was still able to control my blips a little bit, but I definitely got some good blip shenanigans going. I think if I was playing against something like Craftworlds or Drukhari, who's like very, very fast and capable of being all over the place, my blip game would be terrible. But that said, GSC hit, and they're great at the mission. I mean, reroll hits on the neophytes, +1 to wound, +2 AP. It's just it's sustained hits, ignores cover. It's smack seeks.
It's all the rules you want.
It's all the rules you want. You have shotguns and these seismic cannons, and I say everything dies. You know, I don't know how we buff up a shotgun to be as good as a heavy bolter, but we do it. We really do. And every idiot has one of those. So, you know, I think they're great. I think they're very strong. I think they genuinely have the potential to be S tier. I just haven't figured out how yet. But, like, comfortably very strong, I would say. They're an amazing faction. So good at secondaries.
Yep,
made of OBSEC, come back to life, high offense. Like, everything kills them, but it doesn't have real ramifications.
They're one of those armies that can do both tactical and fixed because they can so easily do behind enemy lines or teleport homers or whatever. And that 3.1 away strat is very difficult for a lot of armies to play around. Not to mention the fact that you're getting your units back for free. Frankly, we played a game with Necrons versus GSC where neither of us could like fully kill each other, so we had two undead mobs just smacking into each other. And I think there's a lot of armies that don't have crazy damage output that just can't do anything about GSC.
Yeah, I think there's like half the armies in the game will literally just not be able to play the same Warhammer as GSC, and then GSC plays like a competitive game with armies like Eldar and Space Marines and Custodes. I had a competitive game with Jack.
Do you want to put them up here? Or do you want to put them at very strong?
If we're going max potential, I think a max potential GSC army would be S tier.
Okay.
Like, if you really knew what you're doing with that faction, I think so.
I think it definitely has the tool. Like, free units is absurd.
The jankiness combined with their rules and the depth of the applicability of their data sheets really means there's so much potential in that codex.
If they didn't have as many damage buffs, then they would be a bit lower in my opinion, but they do have the damage that can kill most things in the game.
If they were just mission play and scoring, I would totally agree. They would be, like, honestly relatively balanced, but they have potency. I will table most people with this.
Yeah. Like, the only thing that survived against you was the 20-man Necron warrior unit.
Yeah.
And you almost killed it.
Yeah.
You were getting close.
And that list wasn't even, like, a more optimized version. I would like to try again with my latest stuff.
Yeah, I would like to see it.
Yeah.
All right, so that's GSC. Then we've got Astra Millitarum, so the Guard. Just say it off the bat, some of the best indirect fire in the game. Indirect fire is better. There's ways to ignore modifiers, pluses to hit. It's brutal.
So, Guard, in my opinion, just kind of very basic in application. They stand still, they get +1 to hit, you take indirect fire, you have tons of indirect fire, you get the +1 to hit, and you blow people up.
You get lethal hits.
You get lethal hits. Then you have things like Scout Sentinels, Armored Sentinels, and Infantry, all which come back to life for 2 CP. I played against this in my exhibition match with Andrew Gagne using Craftworld Eldar, and we're going to get to Eldar as an army. But right now, going into that Guard army, I was able to dominate it for most of the game in both board control and in material, but the coming back to life coupled with the indirect fire pounding me for 5 turns, by the end of the game, I basically had no models left. So it really is like a sustained longevity army, kind of like GSC in that recursion style, more indirect fire centric than like raw offense explosive centric. I don't think it's as strong because its mobility is a lot worse. I think it's kind of weak on the mobility side. It just kind of walks infantry around the table at you and has tanks.
Yep, I think it's going to really lean heavily on indirect fire, and that alone puts it above quite a few armies because they just can't suffer that type of punishment every single turn. Like, I think they're probably in very strong.
I don't think they're very strong. I'm just going to go relatively balanced or flawed.
Relatively balanced? No. You haven't played against the max indirect.
That's true. I have not played against
You played against a balanced guard list. We're not balancing guard. Guard is literally about tabling you out of line of sight. And when they do that, they are very strong. I don't think they're as broken as the other armies.
Well, here's my thing. They can have indirect fire, and I have not been shot by like maximum indirect fire, so I don't really know what that's like. But
John will show you.
I don't want to know. That's for other people to find out. But they don't play the mission well. Like, they're very genuinely not good at the mission, and it's easy to score mission points against them. You play tactical against them, it's like, kill a tank, done. Kill a character, done. Take an objective, done. Like, they don't do denial at all. So it's, their game plan is table you with indirect fire and try to sustain with coming back to life. And I question that is not a good game plan. Like, obviously it will work when it works very, very effectively, but when it doesn't work, there is nothing else to do.
So I definitely think that they're very strong based off their indirect fire alone. But if you want to put them at the top or relatively balanced, we can. Because I think most of their options are fine. Like, it's a fine army, except indirect fire brings it over the top, in my opinion.
Yeah, okay. I mean,
it's a ludicrous amount.
I just don't think it would take out Demons or Black Templars or Chaos.
We can put it on the table.
It probably will in the war.
All right.
I'm good with it there, personally.
Okay. Imperial Knights. So this is one of the, like I said, big beneficiaries of the increased toughness. Knights, especially the big knights, are just enormously tanky. Easy access to cover. They have ways to get an armor of a contempt equivalent, like Chaos Knights do. And boy, is it a bear to try and kill big knights. Generally, the Imperium ones shoot even harder. Specifically, things like the Crusader, the Castellan, the Valiant's very good. But you also have Canis Rex, a special character who has free CP on him, and he has exploding 5s and 6s on everything. This is an army that can tank shock and then devastate another unit. Knights are very hard to deal with. There's a lot of armies in the game that don't have enough anti-tank or rerolls to make their anti-tank efficient enough, and they can just stat check people off the board. On top of that, just dealing with the armiger sitting on objectives, you can't. There's 3 huge knights in your face. I think that this is one of the best armies in the game. I think that outside of the very, very top ones, that's a stat check that most armies fail against.
I completely hate the way they've done the towering rule. I feel like it invalidates all the progress we made on terrain through 9th edition because it just breaks the game.
I can see you. You're dead.
You can see me. You're dead. I'm dead. I'm overwatched. Oh, great.
Yep.
And like, if Chaos Knights are good because they bring durable stats to the table, imagine if we bring durable stats to the table and then also table you. That's basically Imperial Knights. This army, I'm between very strong and is this real? You know, somewhere in there. Probably S tier. Probably S tier.
I think it's very strong. I don't know where it fits in with all of this, but it is 100% very strong. I think
if it's 100% very strong, that's one below it.
No, sorry, that's 100% S tier.
Yeah, okay.
S tier. It's better than these armies. I think these armies are going to struggle quite a bit against them.
Yeah, I agree.
And like you fail to do damage with one of these, or you get, the thing is, Knights can access all these cheap resources with 2 assassin characters for lone operatives sitting there, and then 2 exaction squads for mission play, and they just shoot you dead.
As a Doom player, my plan is basically have Bellacore keep me safe until I have to get with an 18. I have to get with an 18 to win this game, and then I have to survive, and I don't know that I can.
And they just put armigers out there instead. Then you come in, then the big knights hit you like a ton of bricks.
Right.
Canis is absurd. He is so good.
CSM, I think, might have Planet Knights. The interesting thing about the very strong armies is that they actually have good defense against being shot off the table, which I think is how they got up there in the first place compared to relatively balanced factions. But Knights being a quintessential shooting army is, that's a nice counter to what the Knights are trying to do to you. Same with Space Marines and whatnot. But at some point you have to close the distance. Then you are getting shot. And also their objective control is insane. Then, if they actually do manage to, kill your warlord or stand on your home field or do one of their night things, then the game's over. Then they're already beating you because presumably they held your home field objective or they killed your warlord. That's good for them inherently. But now, what else is good for them? 5 of Feeling Pain.
Yeah, we've been playing their rule as you reroll a 1 to hit and a 1 to wounds, instead of just reroll all 1s to hit and wounds, which is even a power level above. But like Nick said, if they just snipe your warlord out, like a Vindicare assassin comes in and just snipes it, or you have to use your warlord, oh god. 5 of Pain, you're not doing anything. Just give up.
Knights in general are they're very hard army to come back from. Once they're beating you, you're like, there's just Knights and I can't do enough about it.
It's that OC control. They're 10 OC on these big Knights for the most part, 8 on the small ones. They can just overload an objective and just be like, you're not getting primary, I'm going to get tons of primary while I kill you. You can't hide.
Yeah, and then if you can make the plan go first against Knights and blow them up. They're incredibly tough, so good luck with that. But in theory, that is a workable plan. But because of how few armies can even attempt it, coupled with the unreliability with that plan succeeding, and if that plan fails, the Knights just win the game right then and there. Then the odds of actually beating a Knight army in any sort of traditional way is very, very low, pretty much non-existent. This would be S tier. Okay, talk to me about your robot people.
All right, so we've got the Necrons here. This is an army based in durability.
I don't think we're going to agree on our placement on this one.
This is an army based on durability. That's what it does. It has Lich Guard units that can be extremely durable. You can put Feel No Pains with the Technomancer, 5 of Feel No Pain. You've got 2 Crypto Thralls in any of the infantry units that have a Cryptech, so that's 2 more bodies with a 4 of Feel No Pain that you can regen with Reanimation. You can take 20 warriors, give them stealth and count as in cover, and a 4-up invul. You could instead give them the 5 of Feel No Pain if you want to. You can run a ton of other smaller units that are still relatively durable, things like Immortal Squads or just multiple Lich Guard squads. You can build a ton of like mission play in small units like Scarabs. They've got a lot of lone operatives like the Technomancer with the Cloak or the Hexmark Destroyer that can help do mission things. And then they have decent anti-tank in the Doomsday arc, which is a bit expensive but still can do the job. Heavy destroyers are pretty solid as well, although their durability is lacking. This army is about getting onto the center objectives and sitting there and surviving. You can get a +1 OC aura from the Catacomb Command Barge and just be every Necron Warrior model is 3 OC, which is brutal for a lot of armies to deal with. So they can hold down primary and use cheap mission tools to get into your opponent's backfield and score tactical objectives. This is a great scoring army. Its damage isn't quite as high as the top armies, but it is absolutely S tier in my opinion.
Yeah, honestly, I thought you were going to go lower.
It's either bottom of S or top of... I think it's stronger than these armies.
It's stronger than all three of those.
I don't think it's as strong as Knights or any of these armies because its damage output is so low. So it's in a weird spot where it's either bottom of this or top of this.
I think it's about as good as GSC. I think it's an S tier up there with that. You could move Knights in front of GSC.
Knights are definitely up. Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I agree. Someone who's played against the Necrons twice now, and it's always he uses Necrons, so he's better at reanimating than anybody else because he knows how to control the dice at his will. But let me tell you, I had Chilaxi, I had a Keeper, I had Bellicor. We're killing warriors, nothing's happening. Like, literally, I kill 8-10, come back. I kill 3-10, come back. And I'm like, no. And they're OC3, I'm OC5, there's 50 of them, there's one of me, so it's like... I guess you're going to control this objective and that one with your 20-man unit, and then I can't actually make any progress on killing it. Slowly but surely, you will wear me down, and I guess I am going to lose the slow game here.
I think most of the armies down here just cannot deal with the durable units, and so they just don't score primary. Chaos Space Marines probably can with that specific the combos that we mentioned, and then any of these armies can potentially do it. At least GSC has very good board control as well.
Yeah.
Even if they can't kill you.
I would say if you're coming from the perspective of like Death Guard, Grey Knights, Tyranids, or a lot of the armies in the relatively balanced section against a Necron warrior brick with full reanimations, it would actually make you ask the question, is this real? Like, how is this so good? In that case, I would actually put it in that category, but because the rest of the top tier, like what would be S tier, and even the very strong armies, I think, they can have a conversation with Necrons, they can beat Necrons, they can play a game with Necrons.
Yeah, I just lost last week. With Necrons against Marines.
So it almost is like the worst factions in the games are really going to really struggle to punch up. This is the top faction gap versus the bottom faction gap is pretty big. But I agree. Necrons are S tier.
I think they're probably going to end up here when we readjust the scale. I think they'll be right around Chaos Space Marines and GSC.
I think they're about as good as CSM, but I could see CSM also hopping up to S tier with the way we're shaping this up, or bringing stuff down.
Yeah, I think we'll probably bring stuff down because we're about to get some crazy factions.
We're gonna get some crazy factions.
Okay, tell us about Thousand Suns.
Okay, ever heard of the Thousand Suns Wombo combo? It's basically a easy button that you press if you're a Thousand Suns player to just win 40k. Let me walk you through it. Magnus, Big Bird himself, really cool dude. He can use Cabal points. You're going to have plenty of Cabal points. Don't stress about that. You're going to use Cabal points to blank a save if that you fail and reroll save. So Magnus durability, pretty tough. You fail that melt a cannon hit? No, I didn't. That's very good for a big monster, especially in a world where chip damage doesn't really apply. So that's how you keep the big man alive. But let me tell you what he does. He's an ongoing aura of +1 to hit and +1 to wound for psychic weapons. What's a psychic weapon? Well, for 1 CP, everything's a psychic weapon. So your 10 Terminators, they're psychic weapons. Did you know for 1 CP you can reroll hits and reroll wounds for psychic weapons? Did you know for Cabal points you can use the same stratagem twice for a second time for free? So Magnus, who's, of course, he's got psychic weapons. A lot of devastating wounds on his psychic weapons.
And he can access indirect fire if he wants.
He sure can. And basically, he can reroll hits and reroll wounds, and all of it's +1 hit, +1 wound. Don't forget, you can give your Terminators dev wounds as well. So on those reroll hits, reroll wounds, a lot of 6s coming out of that. So yeah, you can just kill somebody with this stuff. Let's not forget, Siegs, though, that we also have like a casual triple Mutilith Vortex Beast. Very casual. That's just like 140 something points for like, 14 wounds at toughness 12 and 4 up invul 5 up heal no pain. Might only be toughness 10, but it's toughness a lot.
It's high toughness, but not I don't think it's 12.
It might not be 12, but it's 4 up invul 5 heal pain, a lot of wounds, very cheap, does more mortals. And don't forget, the Terminators can teleport. You can actually move after you teleport. They end the game the second you allow them to just hit you.
They have also, you can put a character in a Rubric squad so that they can be untargetable unless you're within 18.
Oh, yeah.
They pump out in a ludicrous amount of mortal wounds. I was just watching them being played. It's just mortals. Okay, take 7 mortals, and next unit, boom, boom, boom. They put out an insane amount of damage output, and they're very durable for their points cost. Then Nick just mentioned all the different strats they have. Basically anything that can possibly do crazy damage, they have it. Did you mention that you can't take armor saves?
Oh yeah, it's just Cabal points, not taking ones. I misquoted the Mutalic Vortex beast. It's 5, Minimal 5, Feeling Pain, and 13 ones. Thank you, chat. But yeah, they also just have Cabal points to erase armor saves along with the bolters that are rerolling hits and rerolling wounds. So, like your Land Raider, how about it's just gone? It's my bolters.
The army is beyond broken.
It's not. It's yeah. Let's just.
It's not real.
You think it's not real?
It's not real.
It's not real. It's not real.
There's
it's,
almost.
I don't know why it exists.
There are so many rules that need to be nerfed in this army. It is crazy.
Yeah, if
and
you take
undercosted.
Thousand Suns and put it into what would be S tier, it kicks the ass of almost all of it.
Most of this just cannot play into it.
Right.
Which is saying a lot about.
Can Thousand Suns just nuke the warriors?
Yep.
Yep.
It's because some of the mortal abilities aren't attacked, so I can't reanimate against them, and then they pop off the
because
damage.
There's still a very high skill ceiling army. Like, we're talking about the combos as if it's easy, applicable, and broken, because it is. But then you also have a ludicrous bag of just tricks and abilities to play and problem solve, and there are unique problems in 40k, like the Warrior Brick. And Thousand Suns, if you just, like, apply your brain and sequence things correctly and do it properly, basically, which we can teach you how to do in the War Room, then the Thousand Suns will just kill you.
It's just that their base data sheets are all undercosted. Then they have abilities upon abilities and ways to make things free. They can get 2 free rerolls to just make sure that your big damage doesn't pop through. Utterly insane army.
My 40 bolter shots off of my Terminators. It's not even 40, but it's going to reroll hits, it's going to reroll wounds, it's going to wound that Land Raider on 5s, your Land Raider's not going to get saves. It just doesn't... Why is the game like that?
If I'm telling you, you're saying there's no battle reports where they win on YouTube, well, guess what? In our practice games, there's only one army that they've lost to.
Look,
and they have smashed everything else.
Look, I don't know what battle reports you're watching on YouTube. You should check out our battle reports. When we put them on with Thousand Suns, we'll see if they win or lose.
There's only one faction that's been able to beat them, and you could probably guess what that is. So next up, we have the Adeptus Mechanicus.
So is this real also? Another question. Like, is the same game that produces Thousand Suns the same game that produces the Admech? That's what I want to know.
Okay, so baseline, -1 weapon skill, ballistic skill for all the Skitarii units. They got that. They have the worst detachment ability in the entire game. It's a detachment ability that helps most other armies in the game proc their abilities by doing a random mortal. Yeah. Or their Battle Shock turn 1, which who cares? So, the Rad cohort is amazingly bad. Their army-wide rule isn't... Their army-wide rule, they expect both parts of it to be active for your army, and that's how they costed it, which is obviously doesn't work like that. They're okay, but the detachment itself is completely abysmal. If I was able to not take a detachment, I would, because the rule is counterproductive to actually winning games.
I read a giant article about it, basically, and it summarized the fact that your opponent literally gets to choose if they would like to be benefited or not. And you would think Battle Shock or Mortal Wound sounds bad, but look, armies like Dark Angels get better when they're Battle Shock. Armies like Necrons literally reanimate closer to you for distance as you take some mortals.
Sisters, +1 to hit.
Sisters, +1. GSC reanimate. There are just ways your opponent benefits from your own ability, and it's their choice.
Yep.
What a garbage mechanic.
Horrendously bad. On top of that, they were like, Admech had a lot of rerolls, a lot of pluses to hit, all this good, efficient type of damage. Let's take all that away. Call gives you reroll 1s in a 6-inch aura. Just reroll once, no full rerolls to hit. They didn't allow Admech to have that. And then Breachers, they either are reroll 1s, or if they sit within 6 of a battle line unit, which is a 100-point minimum unit, they get full rerolls to hit. And that's it. That's all the rerolls in this book with -1 weapon skill and ballistic skill.
Yeah.
This army does shockingly little damage. I had a Tyranid army walk through the middle of the table and take more damage on my Overwatch from the Manipulus than my entire shooting phase did. That literally happened.
The Manipulus is broken.
The Manipulus with anti and dev wounds is very strong. But
so you're saying Admech are good?
There's a 180-point character who does more damage than the rest of the army.
You could take 3 of him.
You can't, because the upgrade is an enhancement, and you can't take multiple of the same enhancement.
Oh, so he's not good on his own. He needs an enhancement.
He needs an enhancement, yes.
Wow. Okay. So Admech, I mean, we've not put anything in this major issues tier. I feel like we can kind of delete it. I don't know.
There's going to be one army.
There's going to be one army.
There's going to be one army that is worse than everything in the game besides the 2 factions that are at the bottom, which is Admech and Death Guard. Admech are better than Death Guard, I think, but not by a ton.
If anything, I think Admech have major issues, because I think Admech would smoke Death Guard, personally.
They just barely do any damage. They have so few ways to ignore cover on actual guns that their opponent is just taking 2 or 3 up saves against most of their guns.
Do you move faster than 4?
I do move faster than 4.
See, you're already beating me.
They're abysmal.
It's a low bar.
It's a low bar, but the faction above them is better.
Okay.
By like a degree that is different enough.
But the next faction we're going to talk about is better than them by a couple degrees. It's the Orks, the bestest faction.
Orks.
The Corn Economy Brutal. You and Mr. Jackson sat and did the entire Orc datasheet reviews. Tell me about these Orcs.
We did. So Orks overall, they have 2 different styles, I think. I think the old style of I'm just going to get into the center of the table, pop my durability, and then hit my opponent from there, still works. It's still very strong. I know Jack is a big fan of it. Things like the Squig Hog Riders, the different Squigosaur Riders, like Mozrag and the boss that you can buff up with some unique enhancements. And they're very durable. They're high toughness now. They have access to 4-up Invuln, 4-up Feel No Pain. You're going to see that Orks in general, even though they are not known as a durable army, a lot of their units got a toughness bump and some sort of extra durability bump, whether they got an upgrade to their invulnerable save, they got access to Feel No Pain. The Orc units are deceptively durable. They're not like they're not going to just not die to any of the top armies, but they're going to take more effort to kill, and it means that more things are going to survive in the center of the table to hit you the next turn. Mm-hmm. And I think the threat overloads that Orcs can put out is actually quite strong. Access to advance and charge and the +1 strength. They also have some really amazing stratagems, in particular to do damage, and they have the old Goths rule. So these guys hit extremely hard. I think the Beast Snagga units stood out the most to Jack and myself, and that's because they have access to anti-vehicle and monster 4+, which allows a lot of the Beast Snagga units to punch up against the most durable units. Vehicles
and monsters basically exist in a toughness bracket that the rest of the game doesn't operate on, which is kind of nice, because I always thought it was strange that bolters just kill rhinos, but it's now a challenge for like your normal units to actually do damage to vehicles and monsters. So having anti-vehicle 4+, anti-monster 4+ really means your basic dudes obviously kill your opponent's basic dudes, but now also kill their vehicles. So Orcs from an offensive standpoint, especially with you said the old Goths rule for sustained hits, they hit.
Yep, and they have some very good characters. The Mega Knobs can be buffed up quite significantly, Knobs as well. What you want to run, trucks are like 50 points for a relatively durable thing. You can just advance a bunch of boys up in trucks, and then have your Squigosaurs and whatnot. I think Orcs are actually quite strong. Now, there probably is a certain level of damage that they just will lose too many units, because it's not really easy to hide this army, the one that I'm at least talking about.
They've always had the bit of the going second versus guns issue.
Exactly. They can still pop the wah and have that 5-up invuln, which is really nice on their extra durability.
You can now pop it at the start of the battle round, too, which means you can go second and pop it defensively turn 1 if you need to.
Exactly. You then lose out on advance and charge, really gaining you a lot of benefit, but if it's the difference between surviving and getting to play a game, then you probably do it. So my personal opinion is that they are in that relatively balanced to very strong category.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I don't know, I haven't seen them on table. It's one of the armies I haven't really studied yet. I would say they're relatively balanced off the bat, but I mean, I don't know how strong their potential really is.
The thing is, what they want to do is be on objectives in the center of the table and then slam onto your objectives. Mm-hmm. And in that case, they're an army that can actually deny primary effectively by forcing you to play more defensive. Their big weakness is going to be efficient guns, which is, as you can see, some of the top armies in the game. Yeah. So I think that's going to be the main struggle for them.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about them Dark Angels. This is one of those Space Marine chapters that's one of the good ones. You know, they have a lot of different builds you can take. You got Ravenwing is very strong, I've been seeing. Deathwing obviously does a lot.
Deathwing Knights, yep.
And then, of course, Desolators. With every Space Marine army takes Desolators.
Yeah. So they also have the Lion, who is he is incredibly powerful with fights first.
He might be one of the best characters in this game. We'll do another tier list about best characters.
He does have a weakness against mortal wounds, but he is one of the strongest characters in the game and can be game-defining. But what Dark Angels do is they can put a lot of durable bodies out in the middle of the table, backed up by fast guns or indirect fire.
Yeah.
That's just very strong.
That's a winning recipe. So what keeps Dark Angels from being is this real tier is it's still kind of Space Marine. It's relatively predictable. It's very good in its application, but it doesn't break the mechanics of Warhammer. It's just a super strong army. I think they're right up there with like regular Marines and Deathwatch.
I would agree. I think those two are the best of the named chapters.
Yeah.
With Black Templars being just a little bit worse than that.
I hate that they're immune to Battle Shock. Also, they actually get better with Battle
They
Shock.
get way better with Battle Shock.
This is like, some armies will actually make it their plan to Battle Shock people, like Chaos Knights and Demons and stuff, and Tyranids, literally their army. Admech. And Light Darkners are like, hey, bring it. Come on, let it rain. Like, I think people should not get better with Battle Shock. Okay, so next up we've got the Sisters of Battle. Everyone likes the Sisters of Battle.
Everybody likes Sisters of Battle. So what do they do now? Miracle Dice is a slow burn. It's something you need to build up over the turns, but they have amazing character support, in particular the Triumph. Her aura ability to turn dice into 6s and allow you to use multiple on different units is pretty much defining for this index.
Yeah.
She is now straight up automatic. She can also get 10 Ablative Wound Battle Sisters just in a squad with her, so she can be quite durable to chew through, especially since she has a lot of wounds. And you can string back to her with your key units. Now, Sisters, they don't hit as hard. Basically, Sisters were Bloody Rose, and Bloody Rose doesn't exist anymore, so they don't quite hit as hard. Celestine and the Zephyrim unit are pretty hard hitting, especially when you can proc 6s on those mortals, but Sisters are a great MSU army. They can put a ton of cheap units. All of those Ministorum units that usually didn't get the benefits or didn't proc as many abilities, they're just Adeptus Sororitas now, and they proc them. So like Solo Penitent Engines, the Crusader units that you can take, the Priest, whatever, Death Cult Assassins. Sisters can put a lot of cheap stuff and sacrifice them for mission play, which is very good. They have a very good indirect fire platform in the Exorcist that's relatively hard to kill, and it can just slowly grind armies down. It's not going to table you, but it's going to slowly grind armies down. It's quality indirect fire. And outside of that, though, they lack anti-tank. Unfortunately, multi-meltas are 18-inch range now, and it's not high enough strength to reliably wound vehicles.
Sisters, fundamentally are a countercharging type of army with, lots of cheap stuff to do mission play, and they're hyper-reliable because of Miracle Dice. So, in 9th edition, Rhinos and tanks of that nature would, drive them on the table, and Sisters would just, auto-kill them with a combination of Strength 8 versus Toughness 7. Multi-Meltas backed with AP4, high damage, and Fate Dice, Miracle Dice. Then, when you got near the Sisters army to try to stop its scoring factory, it would unleash the Repentia with full rerolls to hits and rerolls to wounds and just murder your face off. So unless you could actively get around the fact that you have to come near them, so that's with indirect fire or speed or lack of terrain or whatever have you, Sisters were a really amazing countercharge army. Now, you don't have that same level of pressure being put on the ranged phase, because you have Exorcists, they're great, but your multi-melters are strength 9 in a world of toughness 10. You just went from wounding on 3s to 5s. Miracle Dice are fine, but you actually don't get them as frequently. And Repentia, of all things, don't really do what they used to. And Overwatch as a stratagem really kills your reliability, because it's okay, I'm going to send my Repentia or my Zephyrim or something, 9 inches out of my Rhino, then charge 2d6 inches, and instead of 2d6, it's going to be 8. And that's nice. That's great for knowing how far you'll go. But nowadays, it's I'm going to move out my Rhino, and I'm dead. I got Overwatched by Flamers. I'm toughness 3 and garbage armor. So that's just the end of that aspect of Sisters. They still have play. They still have a lot of things they can do. They still play the mission well, and as Fate Dice get generated throughout the game, it actually does get a lot stronger. The real thing here is that Sisters, they struggle versus an indirect meta, and as we've talked about with Thousand Sons, as we'll get to with Craft Worlds and some other factions like Desolators toting Space Marines, indirect fire is just here, and it's not going anywhere.
Anytime indirect is good, Sisters suffer.
Yeah.
Is basically how it is. Now, Immolators and Rhinos are solid, but taking a lot of those means a lot less points of stuff that's doing damage.
So what's not suffering, and I know we said we'll do super chats at the end, but this is just worth it. John McCardell coming in clutch once more. John, thank you so much. Gifting, 50 super chats?
50 memberships. So thank you so much, John McCardell. You're a hero every single time. And on top of that, if you are one of the people who was generously gifted a sub by John McCardell, please make sure you go to your YouTube page, your settings. There should be a notification somewhere to accept the gifted sub, so you get all the benefits of the War and Bronze tier, where there's a lot of 10th edition content.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, John.
Thank you, John. So all you have to do is literally accept that settings button, then you can access the Bronze tier of the Warrior membership to your heart's content on our channel.
He is also a huge fan of the World Leaders, and because he has been gifting so many memberships to our channel, just an absolute hero. We are going to be playing World Leaders in a couple weeks on stream, so get ready for that. We're doing it, John.
All right, so I think Sisters are flawed.
I think they are flawed. They really need some sort of reliable anti-tank to help against the top armies, and the multi-meltas are too short range now, I think. Well, and you have to save up Miracle Dice to reliably wound them in the first place. So I think they're just fundamentally missing a piece.
So, these are your boys, Steaks. You're known as the Tau Guru, the Shaso Siegler, as your Discord handle says. I know Tau almost as well as you. Just about as well as you. But I think it'd be fair for you to talk here.
So, there's a lot of negativity about Tau. Their big weakness is that they don't have very good anti-tank. They have hammerheads, which are garbage, and they have broadsides, which are low volume of fire and don't have the same type of defense to potentially survive against other guns, and they're also slow. So Tau fundamentally lack anti-tank, which we've seen it. That is something that's going to put you lower because vehicles are outstanding, especially towards the top of the meta. However, they do have one thing that I think is very strong, and that's Lone Operative. And they have it in spades. Lone Operative, you can't be targeted by ranged attacks unless your opponent's within 12 inches. Tau have this all over the place. They can run a lot of different models with the Lone Operative and force your opponent to come to your half of the board to engage you, which means all of your 18-inch range guns don't have to overcommit to do anything. You just wait for your opponent to get to the center, and then you actually hit them quite hard. They still have Crisis Suits that hit very hard, and access to now sustained hits, including sustained hits too if you're guided in Kalyan, and you could be guided in Kalyan turn 2 onward with an enhancement. The Tau army shoots pretty hard, especially the Crisis unit that's buffed up, but it's not going to table you in 3 turns. They don't play that playstyle anymore. They're incentivized to draw out the game and win the late game, in which case you need to be able to survive on objectives in the mid game and onward. So that's where Lone Operative comes in. I don't think they have multiple playstyles. I think they just have one playstyle, and you have to play that to do effectively with Tau, which doesn't feel great, but I think that one playstyle is quite solid.
If we look at a common thread between most, if not all, of the top armies, Thousand Sun, Space Marines, Deathwatch, Dark Angels, Custodes, Knights, GSC, and Necrons are all relatively shooty factions. And being able to just spam out Lone Operative as a word against that is amazing because you're fundamentally not letting them apply their strategy. So what's really elevating Tau is the fact that they're obviously a Lone Operative-based army, and they're trying to play a long game instead of a short Alpha Strike game like they used to. That long game is possible when you're not taking damage back because the other people can't shoot you. If the meta was very combat-oriented, I would say Tau probably lose a lot of luster because they're just getting charged. But in this meta that we're predicting right now, that we're kind of calling out, I think Tau actually has great counterplay as a spoiler type of army. I still think it's flawed. Like, it doesn't have many build options. It's not very good at doing a variety of things. But the one thing it does is very valuable today.
Yeah, I think that Tau can punch up against the armies in very strong and relatively balanced. Mm-hmm. I think they will struggle overall into the very top armies, even with Lone Operative. They still don't have anything that survives on objectives in the center of the table. So holding down primary that is not on your half of the board is just difficult.
Yeah.
On top of that, like I said, just long-range anti-tank is an issue, so they can't really kill those elements until you get close.
Our railgun's not good at just blowing stuff up.
It's one shot you get an invuln against.
Yeah, it's not very good.
If you fail to save, it does a bunch of damage, but it's one shot, and then the tank itself is 3-up armor, gets cover, maybe, dead. So that's... And then broadsides, like I said, worse defense, but have 2 shots. It's you get invulns against these things. They have dev wounds, but Tau don't have anti anywhere. What they really should have is fusion blasters, and certain weapons should have anti to help with the anti-tank problem. I think the same thing should be true of multi-meltas and sisters. They should just have anti-vehicle 4+ or something.
Yeah.
To just help the problem of, I'm already getting close to these things, I should also be able to actually damage them. I personally think the Tau are relatively balanced in terms of being able to fight those very strong and relatively balanced armies, but the index itself is flawed in that it literally has one playstyle, and if you don't play that, you're getting tabled.
I think it's flawed in the same way that like Tyranids and Grey Knights are flawed, and Sisters too.
It has good rules.
They have stuff they can do, but the codex itself is not great, and it's got problems that it just can't solve.
Yep.
Yeah. So disappointing a little bit, but also it's not the end of the world. So let's talk about this one, which I think is also maybe a little bit flawed.
All right, so Space Wolves.
I love me some Space Wolves. Everyone knows I've been ongoing as a Space Wolf saga warrior for years now, and now I just hired Quentin as my own little pup to continue the saga with me on this journey. So what happened to Space Wolves? Why aren't they basking in the glory that every Space Marine army in the world is? Well, let me tell you, they're faction detachment rule, unlike every other faction detachment rule, triggers off of your ability to accomplish a goal. So your characters have to go kill an enemy character or do a specific thing to unlock the Saga of the Bear or whatever, which will then give your entire army a buff, which is great. But you know what's better? Just giving your entire army a buff without having to go do something first. So that's a little disappointing, but whatever. I can get over that, and you can just play regular Combat Doctrine Space Marines. Let's talk about their unique data sheets, like, I don't know, Wolfen. Sorry.
That has to be a typo.
Can I? No. I literally thought it was a typo. And I was like preaching how it's a typo. Like, don't freak out about it. It's got to be a typo. And then I saw a screenshot of the Warhammer community Facebook page where someone was like, can you please fix this Wolfenhammer so it's not a typo? And then they replied and they were like, no, this is the new hammer. It's not a Thunderhammer. It's meant to be a Wolfenhammer. This is literally the quote. And everyone knows Thunderhammers are the same strength and AP as a Lightning Claw. With fewer attacks, though. You get a shield. Is the trade-off. You get a 4-up invulse. Durability. You trade attacks for durability. No strength increase, though. So that exists. But, you know, it's not all like that. They have long things, which are good. Skyclaws are good. Thunderwolves are actually very good at their points cost. I quite like Thunderwolves. Their characters, largely speaking, are fine. They're no Blood Angel characters.
Ragnar hits like a truck, though.
Ragnar's amazing. Logan Grimdar's pretty great, which is cool. Ragnar and Logan are two of the bad OGs. I think it's still a good army, because Space Marines are a good army. Like, you can take all the good Space Marine units and put them straight into your Space Wolf army and play Space Marines with your Space Wolf Codex. That's not what we're talking about.
So, if we just take the Space Wolf unique rules, they are a flawed army. However, they are Space Marines and can just take Gladius, and with Gladius, they're up in here.
I think the Gladius are still very strong, but
yeah, they're still very
but I feel like we should toss them into relatively balanced, because I think they can.
Blood Angels are there too.
Yeah, Blood Angels there. Blood Angels are just better rules than Space Wolves, and it's very insulting. Like, Death Company are great, but I don't know. Thunder Wolves are not bad. Thunder Wolves are genuinely pretty strong, because their price point is cheap. And they have storm shields.
They have the silver lining of, I can just take Gladius, and great. Awesome.
Yeah, right at the bottom of relatively balanced, I think that's good. That's a good place for Space Wolves.
Okay, so
we're going to talk about this.
We got 3 more armies. We've got one that's near and dear to Mr. Nick's heart, one that probably everybody's been waiting on, and the only one that Thousand Sons have lost to.
So we got our craft worlds, and we've talked about craft worlds. We talked about craft worlds on this channel.
You played craft worlds.
I played craft worlds, and let me just break down a couple things for you. They're a relatively balanced faction in the sense that they're fragile and they're fast, but then they're hard hitting, but they're not good at combat and all that stuff. But then they're also ludicrously undercosted in so many places. And then they have this other cool rule, Fate Dice. And then they combine Fate Dice with this other rule they just have in their data sheets in spades called Devastating Wounds. And when you combine those 3 external factors, we'll call them the Fate Dice, the Dev Wound Special Rule, and points cost, then this nice, relatively balanced faction that we kind of had at the end of 9th edition is beyond broken and doesn't exist in this game. So to tell you about some of the combos, Overwatch as a special rule is a stratagem. When my opponent goes to move in their turn, I can just say, I'm going to take my pot shots and try to do damage to you before you do whatever you want to do in your turn. Yeah. Last-ditch effort to shoot you. So you hit on 6s. But Eldar have control over when they roll a 6 with Fate Dice. And it's not like you get 1 or 2 Fate Dice. You get as many as you want, functionally. So, and that's because Farseers generate Fate Dice and then flip them to 6s, and Storm Guardians generate Fate Dice, and then Wraith Lords, when they kill stuff, generate Fate Dice. So you have no shortage of Fate Dice. And Eldrad just gives you 3, so you start with 15, because that's a great starting point. So I'm going to hit you in your turn when you're moving. And then my weapons just reroll a hit and reroll a wound. So I probably wound you, and then if I want to do mortal wounds, I'll just use another Fate die for a 6, and then my damage character just becomes mortal. So your tank that you moved into the open just dies. Fire Prisms are 125 points. The Wraith Knight is 370 points. What are we doing here? Like, don't forget, you can also just put Fortune on something, -1 to wound. Put it on the Wraith Knight. Okay, now I'm immune to everything that's not Strength 10. or something, and even strength 10 wounds me on 6s. Strength 11 wounds me on 6s. Okay, so your strength 12? Okay, strength 12 gets to wound me on 5s, and strength 14 gets to wound me on 4s. Okay, so you got your Doomsday Cannon, Doomsday Orks. It's a very strong weapon. It's 4 damage, ooh, and it's strength 14. You get making me take a couple saves, fate dice. I don't need 6s for those. I'll use my 4s on fate dice there. So my 1s, 2s, and 3s will be converted to 6s by my Farseer factory. My 4s and 5s are actually quite useful for passing involts and just doing generic hits and wounds and charges. And my 6s, well, they table you in your turn, and in my turn, and when you're moving, and when you're charging, and when I intercept you. And then decans are indirect fire, but also so is the Wraith Knight, because the Wraith Knight is towering. That's a balanced rule. And then there's fire prisms. Did you know fire prisms just see through each other? So you could have one fire prism in one corner, one fire prism in the other corner, and then one fire prism zoom into your own deployment zone. All 3 fire prisms can shoot from the one in your deployment zone at whatever they want. Then fire and fade, move the full distance, normal move 14 inches right back to behind safety. Then I can move in your turn because I'm not done yet.
Phantasm is
Fantastic. I'm just now getting to Phantasm. If all the stuff I already mentioned didn't exist, that would have been the best rule in Eldar. But you know what? I had to get to that like 17th. Also, there's the Avatar, who is pretty much just like the Wraith Knight, except instead of shooting with decans, he walks up the table tabling you. And you know what? Well, I choose. Have it all. Literally have it all. It's okay, though. This army's got to be bad at missions. If it's so offensive and so durable, then it has to be bad at missions. No, it's ludicrously fast. It has a billion units that are all super cheap. The Wind Riders move fast. The Warwalkers infiltrate. Vipers move fast. Siegs, can you stop me? I can't. Warp Spiders move 24 inches.
Okay, so the only question here, obviously, this is not real.
Is this real? Did they print this? What is this?
Obviously, nobody played a single game with Eldar, and if they did, you can't even find a bad unit in there, though. It's how?
They're bad units. They really are. Like the Corsairs, I guess.
Not with Fate Dice.
Not with Fate Dice. I mean, everything's good with the Fate Dice. The Corsairs actually do have a Wraith Cannon.
I know.
Yeah, you totally can. You know what? Howling Banshees are kind of bad.
kind of.
They're still cheap as chips. They're 15 points each.
Okay, so our question here is, and we can do this after we do the last 2 factions, but do we just move some of these down? Or do you want to just finish the last 2 tiers? Because I think Eldar is in its a unique tier.
Well, so the issue is Eldar... I thought Eldar was going to be the only Is This Real one. I think Thousands Lands would be S tier, and then we can kind of shift it all down like 1 if you want to do it like that.
All right, let's do the next 2, and then we'll talk about reorganizing.
Okay. So we don't have the next 2 as faction icons just because the tier list thing hadn't updated in some time. But we will be using these wonderful, wonderful graphical images for you that Mr. Siegs has mocked up.
Yep, so we got World Eaters up next.
Mm-hmm. So World Eaters, they kill, they maim, and they burn. They destroy stuff. They don't shoot. They don't pretend to shoot, and they definitely don't pretend to psychic. They do move very, very fast. You can actually fairly reliably, you give your entire army +2 move and advance and charge. And at that point, you are actually an incredibly fast combat army that obviously hits very hard. The biggest challenge I think World Eaters will face is the fact that they don't just kill tanks like they used to. Vehicles are genuinely very durable, same with monsters. And if you're just charging World Eaters into vehicles and monsters, there's no guarantee that you kill them, and that can cause you enormous headaches down the road. You're a little bit vulnerable to Overwatch because you're just kind of an army that walks around and charges stuff, and you're obviously fairly one-dimensional as an army that just walks around and charges stuff. That said, you have access to Always Strikes First, you have access to Heroic Intervention strat for free, Master of Executions and World Eaters is awesome, Demon Prince is good, you can bring Angron back to life. There are so many cool things this army can do. I think it will walk straight fist first into a Custodes army and literally Always Strikes First beats World Eaters the faction. I think Necrons will pretty much just be unkillable, despite the fact that like 6-8 bound can be like take 40 saves and Necrons are like here you go. So I just don't necessarily know that they have what it takes to beat S tier armies. I still think they're pretty good. Like, I think they can beat the very strong armies. World Eaters vs. Demons is an interesting match. World Eaters vs. Templars, probably interesting. World Eaters CSM, probably interesting. And then they can definitely hang with all the balanced factions. I think they're between relatively strong and balanced, or very strong and relatively balanced. It really depends how they cope with getting shot in today's day and age. I would put them in relatively balanced. They're a little bit flawed because they skip half the game as an army identity, but whatever. They're pretty good at it.
Yeah, they definitely are.
Yeah. All right, talk to me about the Leagues of Votann.
Okay, so Leagues of Votann, you were wondering why is there a whole slot where nothing is fitting in? This is the Leagues of Votann slot. Mm-hmm. They are better than Death Guard and Admech, because they have a unit called Hearthguard that is better than every single data sheet in both those books and is going to carry the book to be able to punch up potentially into the ones above them. So why is this data sheet so good? Well, first, it's one of the few units that actually kept ballistic skill 3+ and weapon skill 3+. Rest of the army nerfed to weapon skill and ballistic skill 4+. Just like AdMech, they also took all the rerolls away, so this army basically has only like 1 or 2 ways to reroll wounds, which is disembarking a small unit from a land fort, and the land fort has to target a unit. That is basically it. There's none of this Space Marine stuff where you get rerolls all over the place. So Votann got worse at shooting and combat, and also they took away their rerolls. Their characters are abysmal. They are worse than a bunch of the AdMech and Death Guard characters, if you can believe that. They literally do nothing, somehow. So to get the Hearthguard buff, you have to put a character in. So I just have a 100-point tax by putting this call into my unit, which I don't want to do, but I want -1 to wound on the Hearthguard. So there's a dichotomy there. And then their whole army mechanic, yes, judgment tokens, +1 to hit, +1 to wound. That sounds good, right, Nick?
That does seem good.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's a good rule.
Well, guess what? It is so much harder to place judgment tokens now than before because they got rid of the other 2 ones where you did an action and you could pick a unit on an objective.
Why don't you just stand next to Magnus to get it?
If I stand next to Magnus, he'll get like 70 judgment tokens because he'll kill everything. And then, cool, you can only go up to a max of 2.
Oh.
So it actually helps if your kill the units just keep killing the Votann units. But anyway, you have to sacrifice a lot of your dwarf units, your Harlequin warriors, your Sagittars, your 3-man Thunderkins. You got to shove them into the middle of the board in the early game to force your opponent to kill them so that they get judgment tokens, and then your Hearthguard can do damage. That's basically the only playstyle this army has. Is you got to run 20 to 30 Hearthguard, MSU everywhere else, throw that stuff, let it die, and then hopefully Hearthguard can table your opponent, and you spend all your CP on Hearthguard. That's it. That is all this army has. That core is better than Death Guard and AdMech, which is why they have their unique tier, but it is worse than everything else by like a significant margin.
I don't disagree. I think it's pretty cool that they literally created a tier for themselves in this tier list. But, the Leagues of Votann deserve it. They got some major issues.
Not AdMech and Death Guard.
But we're not asking them why. Again, we know why they have major issues. We just pinpointed all of it.
Yep.
I don't even know how you fix AdMech and Death Guard. Start over. That's my suggestion.
I think it's so bad.
Okay, so we've got a super chat that I want to address before we hit all the super chats, because we're going to go back and do it all. But the most recent one, actually, just scroll up a little bit, is the one before that. Is right there, 50 Swedish crown super chat. Swedish krona. Do pure Harlequins, please? And we have the pure Harlequin graphic right there, so why not? This is my take on pure Harlequins. Why GW, why again? And why I say that is because they were getting so much development, right? Harlequins used to be a codex in like 2nd edition. Let's forget about that, because that's the ancient times. Then it was like a unit in the Eldar codex in like 5th edition, just Harlequin troops. Then it was like a few units. Then it was its own codex. Like there was literally a Harlequin codex. Yep. And now we are back to just a few units in the Eldar codex, and largely speaking, they're terrible. Like regular troops, god-awful. It's very depressing. You can make Harlequins and take them and have them be good as like allies into your Eldari armies. Solitaire is very good. Void Weavers are fine.
Death Jester.
Jeff the Jester's always great. But you know what? Why did they just get rid of my faction? I have a Harlequin army. I painted it in 3 days. You can catch that live on this YouTube channel as well. Why? Why did I do all that? Why?
I don't know.
Why again?
But just Fate Dice alone puts them in like relatively balanced minimum.
I mean,
being in the Eldar,
if you want to just say Fate Dice holds it up to that level, you can, because Fate Dice is crazy pants.
It does.
Okay.
Let's
right. Put them in flawed. But I want to put them in YGWY again. Yeah. I'm on a Harlequin's just statement. But you know what is it? All the super chats that we have got to address.
Let's readjust the tier list and then go back to that and then do final thoughts.
Sure. Okay. Let's start at the top. Do we want to knock Thousand Suns down a peg and bring everything down, or do we want to is this real? Because I think Eldar is just head and shoulders above 1,000 Suns.
They're the only army that 1,000 Suns can't beat just all the time.
I think we do. I think we bring 1,000 Suns to S tier.
Okay, so 1,000 Suns will go top of S. I don't think Necrons, their damage output just isn't the same.
Necrons are very strong, sure.
GSC.
I think GSC can hang. I think GSC can hang in S tier. It's very, very good, in my opinion. I don't know about the rest of it, though, because I feel like 1,000 Suns is kind of better than all these factions. But these factions should all just be an S tier,
Yeah, the Marine nonsense is just absurdly strong. I think these four for sure. It's the question of the last three.
I think Custodes and GSC are both about as good as each other, and I think they're both phenomenal.
And then I think Knights are that ultimate stat check.
And Ultimates are the best stat check. Yeah, okay, I'm good with that.
I'll put them over here.
Yeah, I think that's right. So very strong. I like this very strong section.
Yep.
Yeah.
Armies. And like we said with the Space Marines, we're doing it based on if they run their unique stuff. Because Gladius is up here. Gladius is just awesome.
Yeah, right.
So this is their unique stuff. So if Black Templars used Gladius, they'd be up here too.
I'm happy with all four of those and very strong. I don't think relatively balanced is wrong. I think that's a good balance. So really, we didn't really change much. We just moved Thousand Suns down.
Okay. Thousand Suns go down, but they are clean top.
Yeah, they're the top by a significant margin over the rest of S tier. Like if we created yet another tier, Thousand Suns, it's like Eldar, Thousand Suns, a lot of armies.
Yep.
Well, I think the biggest issue is that the armies that are flawed and the armies that are relatively balanced, so I'm not even going to talk about Admech and Death Guard and Votann, but just the bulk of the game, relatively balanced and flawed armies, can't punch up effectively to S tier and Eldar and Thousand Suns. Like, forget Eldar, that's its own game over there. But Thousand Suns, they're also their own game over there. The rest of S tier, like, Astra Militarum not beating S tier. Drukhari, I don't think, is beating S tier. Maybe it can. But I watched Archon Skari get demolished by John in John's first game of 10th edition with Knights.
Yep. They did bad things to my Necrons too.
Yeah, there's just a level where your stats aren't built for this. So I'm hoping they can kind of rein these stats back in. This is all so brand new, and I know that G-Dubs is the James Workshops of the world are watching. So hopefully, they listen to the community feedback and really take some of this to heart.
Definitely. So let's go ahead and
Did we lose all the super chats from a long time ago?
No.
Oh, we got the whole thing.
I'm gonna go to all messages.
Siegs knows how to press buttons. I'm in awe. So looks like I don't think that was the first one, was it?
Oh
boy.
We should be able to get the. I definitely. There it is. I clicked the wrong
Fan
button.
funding. Here we go. Wow.
I clicked the wrong button.
Okay. Let's go to the beginning.
We're going to do our final thoughts after we do all the super chats. If you have any other questions you want to ask us and want to super chat, we'll get to them. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. First one. We've got Knobs Burgers. $5 super chat. Thank you so much.
What in the middle of them?
No, this is the first one.
No, there's is that all?
This is all members, people who joined as members.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, you're good.
Yep.
Siegs knows. Why do I? Yeah. Okay. Knobs Burgers, $5 super chat. Thank you for your support. What is the best army and why is it Orks? Because why?
Why?
Oh, good.
Orks overall, I think they're in a pretty good spot because they have a lot of data sheets that are very useful. And like I said, unlike the previous edition, where if you go second against guns, you insta-get deleted, they actually have some really nice toughness, invuln, and feel no pain buffs to make their units more durable, even when out in the open. And I think that's going to take them a long way. Also, the fact that they already want to be in the center of the board and pushing into your opponent, that's an army that can score primary very effectively.
Yeah. $2 super chat from Slack Onion. What was more baffling, Admech or points? For me, points. Just like some of them are just like wild.
As baffling as Admech is, the Eldar points are even more baffling.
The rate at 370 is comical. Taylor at the $5 super chat. Terrain questioning. Can you still block out ruins by placing models in an inch behind a wall for close combat? I know barricades have a 2-inch engagement rule, but not ruins. Yeah, as far as I can tell, you still have to make base contact to connect a charge. So
yep. And because the second row needs to be base to base with a model that's in base contact, that is actually very hard to do between ruins.
Yeah, you can actually use ruins to really mess up charges now.
Yep.
Great question. We got Tauq with a £5 super chat. Excited for 10th. Us too. Well, GW killed Sisters Melee. Which army do you think can provide Bloody Rose feeling? Keep up the great work, lads.
Definitely World Eaters, right?
I mean, they'll hit like Bloody Rose, but I don't know if it'll play like Bloody Rose because you're just kind of advancing charge up the field like that.
Definitely not Drukhari anymore.
No.
Orks could. They can do MSU combat relatively effectively. It might be Chaos Space Marines.
I was going to say Chaos Space Marines or Custodes, actually. Their melee is probably pretty significantly similar.
Custodes are just more elite, whereas Chaos Space Marines can at least put a bunch of units on the board.
I would say Chaos Space Marines.
Yep.
Or even Blood Angels.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Blood Angels, World Eaters, those armies are still dominant, or like good combat armies that can play that trade game.
Yeah. We've got David Gutierrez with the $5 super chat. Got a question about Tank Shock and Knights. Can I use the sweep profile to get more dice, or do I have to use the strike profile for either?
It's based off the strength of your weapon, and then if it's higher, you get 2 additional dice, so you want the high strength weapon.
So you can just use the strike profile to get a higher number of strength on your weapon.
I think Canis Rex is like strength 20, so that's higher than everything, so plus 2 dice, so 22 dice, 5 ups or mortals. It's very consistent 6 mortals.
And then Broderick Engelhard with the $5 super chat. Will you guys talk at all about what you see of the future of Harlequinns? So sad for my clown boys.
You did go through your Harlequin rant.
Look, I don't know what the directional design for the Harlequins are. I'm also super sad about it. If anything else, I'm hoping that this is an index time, and index really is different to codexes. For those of you who have not experienced this transition before, they did this in 8th edition. Yeah. Maybe Harlequins will get a codex towards the second half of the 10th edition release schedule. For the short term, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for our clown boys. Pour one out. Okay, what else we got?
We've got a $5 super chat from Matt O. Thank you so much, Matt. Did you guys try a Morty Land Raider focused build? We, in fact, did actually play that build, and it struggled into Votann, which says a lot.
Yeah, it's like a Land Raider is still a Land Raider, but the offense in this game can just kill a Land Raider if you really try. Morty is a little disappointing, I'll be honest.
The no mortal wound protection really kills them.
Yeah.
Like, you cannot walk up the board anymore.
Also, in line with that is a $2 super chat from Turdstain Jimmy. Great name. Nurgle got screwed, but at least Khorne is playable. That's true. Khorne is genuinely a really good faction for Demons, CSM, and World Eaters. Khorne is a great god right now.
Just another Hive ship. Thank you so much for your super chat. Why take a Carnifex when the Harspex is also 125? You take a Harspex.
You do. Well, you take the Carnifex after you take your third Harspex.
Yep.
Yeah.
The big monsters seems to be the way Tyranids are going. Just a lot of bulk on the board. Threat overwhelmed their anti-tank. Then we've got Miss Wub Wub. Thank you so much.
Great name.
Zerkers hit like pillows. What do you think World Eaters need to be decent right now? Broader range? Reductions? What do you think?
I would like just higher strength on their attacks so they can reliably kill monsters and vehicles. Right now they're fine at murdering infantry, but so is everything. You need to be able to kill tanks effectively. Their speed is actually quite good, and that's why I like them the most, but they just need more offense, and not in terms of a number of attacks, just higher strength and better AP, that kind of thing.
Yeah. We've got Cast324. Thanks so much for your super chat. Need your opinion. How is it possible that GW released a whole edition that is poorly balanced, creates so many feels bads for factions and players? Has to be something we're missing.
Hey, Cass, so the $10 super chat, great question. I can tell you that it's an obviously enormous project balancing the entirety of 10th edition upon release, and you got to remember these are just indexes, not codexes, so they're also probably currently rules designing and playtesting a variety of factions, some of which have already probably been finished and gone to the printers already for this upcoming edition. So how much time do you want to spend doing an indexing of all the armies when you have to do the codexes immediately thereafter? This is almost like an interim hold period. And right now, the game looks kind of imbalanced. I'm totally with you. It's not the most balanced it's ever been by a long shot. But this is a very temporary time, and the game does evolve. So if anything, I've been playing this game for 20 plus years. I would say that just hang tight, and it will get better.
Yeah, the game's not balanced right now. Simple as that. However, with their willingness to immediately change that Deathwatch interaction, I think within a couple weeks they will just see all the different things that are wrong with the game as we get more data, as we get more games, and I'm hoping that within a couple months they have a really nice data slate or points update to really just help fix this problem areas, because there's a few. Yeah, and they need it.
They do. And what gives me insurance and confidence to say this, and I'm not trying to be patronizing at all, you have valid concerns here, is literally just that they have shown with consistency now that they will make changes. And they did it literally last week with Deathwatch in record time. So yeah, I think Games Workshop is becoming aware of all these problems. Like, this tier list is something that helps identify the problems. These chats and these Reddit rants and whatever is all something that is not just being swept under some GW rug. They don't want their game to be broken. Why it got broken in the first place, aside from the initial reset, I don't know how hard it is to balance Warhammer 40k. I've never really given it an honest shot, but I can say that this is a bit of a miss in some places, but I can say with some degree of confidence that they will do something about it.
Frankly, the misses are obvious at this point. We've all been talking about them online. All the different forums are talking about them. Mm-hmm. They're known, so making them known to Games Workshop is going to help get them fixed as soon as possible.
It could very well be that, they release this, the community reacts like this. This is not the first time they've been to this radio, and then they fix the things. So this could be calibrated.
Yep. Bonsai Kitty Gaming, thank you so much. Thoughts? Talos, on this Talos combination. Love the content. Keep it up. Playing IG tank spam on Sunday. Cheers. So I played against Drukhari quite a few times, including Talos, with a vehicle-heavy Tau army, and I found Talos to be very disappointing for their
He's got a specific combination. So he's got 2 Talos with 2 Talos gauntlets, a chain flail, and a twin haywire blaster. I love the twin haywire blaster. I think that is the right gun for them, just because the good shots and it's actually good into vehicles. Twin Talos gauntlets, that's the best combat weapon, and the chain flail, that's just nice for volume attacks. I like Talos gauntlet chain flail for melee, haywire blaster on top. I think that's absolutely the right combo. And playing the IG tank spam, you definitely want those haywires.
Yes. I played against this combo. It's not going to do as much to tanks as you think it will. And their 7-inch move without going through buildings is not great.
Yeah.
So that's the only concern I have. Definitely bring as much Dark Lances as you can.
Dark Lances is the money shot.
Then you got a $5 Jake Super Chat. Thank you so much. What are your thoughts on Mono Harlequinns? We did do that one.
Yep. Thank you so much for your support, Jake. We definitely hit Harlequinns. John McCardell, welcome to the Worm as a bronze member. I don't know how you've been gifting so many subs, but you yourself are not a member, but welcome.
He also said that you're on fire.
I am on fire for $10. Thank you so much, John. That was when I was Eldar ranting. I was definitely on fire, much like the Avatar.
Zine the Scene, thank you so much for your super chat. Oh no, I just tuned in. As a Nids and Grey Knight player, the list is scary since Nids won't get updated data sheets in their codex. Can Nids be fixed? Like I said, Grey Knights and Nids aren't bad. They have some very good rules. The problem is the armies above them are so dramatically efficient and do things that are very difficult to deal with. I think some targeted buffs to their various units or abilities will help bring them up into just relatively balanced or very strong.
Yeah, I think all those armies that are in the flawed category right now are actually pretty okay. It's kind of flawed because they're wondered where we just went real quick. It was the Warp Storm got pretty angry about Death Guard and
very angry. In fact, it was just...
Nurgle himself came down and kind of took a poop all over our internet connection. But you know what? We're back. We are back, and we are back at them. We're back at these super chats. So thank you so much for all of you who stood with us. Looks like we lost some viewers, but we still got plenty. You guys are awesome. Thanks. Appreciate you all. All right, so where were we in these super chats, Mr. Seeks?
So we were going through, and I believe we had just answered the question about Tyranids and Grey Knights, that they can definitely be fixed, and I'm sure that like small buffs over time will really help these. But the top armies coming down will also be massive.
And a $5 super chat from Todd Silber. I know Todd from my days back in the up northeast. How you doing, Todd? Just showing off appreciation again for you guys. If you have time, why Shalaxi over a 100-point less Bloodthirster? Her rerolls look strong but selective. Her rerolls are actually very applicable just because everything that has a character joined to a unit it has the character keyword. So pretty much Trash doesn't have characters joined to it. She'll kill Trash. Good units have a character joined to them. Now she rerolls. Monsters vehicles, you want rerolls. And honestly, why Shalaxi is not any of those things. Those things are great, but it's really the 5 of Feeling Pain. She's just so tough.
Yeah, the rerolls plus the 5 of Feeling Pain just put her over the edge.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for that super chat. John McCardell, Nikki is on fire.
Saki Benson with 50 Swedish kronas. Do you pure Harlequinns, please? We did pure Harlequinns. They're in the tier list. You are good to go. John Apocalypse with $2 super chat. What changes do you see coming for first post 10th edition release? That's a great question. I know that, fundamentally Games Workshop is made aware of the more broken interactions in the game, like the Wraith Knight and like Fate Dice interacting the way it do. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure they're aware of the Thousand Suns Wombo combo that we went through. The points cost of the very absurdly pointed units, I think they're on top of, or at least they're aware of. So hopefully those are the things that will be addressed in the first one. I think there's definitely an element of you have to wait and see to watch the meta develop beyond a certain point, but you can fix the absolutely broken things right off the bat.
Definitely. I think easy points increases to a lot of the most broken combinations will help at least make the game balance between, kind of flatten the curve a little bit.
Yeah. Matt O with another $10 super chat. Thank you, Matt O. There's a big gulf between the haves and have-nots here. Also, should Sisters double down on MSU or adopt a 4th edition style? Everything on a Rhino mantra. Still looking forward to 10th. Thanks, guys. I'm not sure how Sisters need to evolve to adapt to 10th edition. I know John is deep in the war room, working on Sisters, trying to figure out exactly how they work. It could be very 4th edition Rhino-esque. I think that'd be a really cool playstyle to see them redevelop. Rhinos and just vehicles in general are a lot more durable.
Yeah, there's a great game that John and I recorded with Grey Knights vs. Sisters. That was a really awesome 2-point game with a lot of like tricky combinations on both sides. So look forward to that coming in the War Room in a week or two.
And you can check out the War Room again for that 3-day free trial. It's thewarroom.vhx.tv. The link right down in the description. It's right up here above me for your ease of clicking. So definitely check that out. We'll go through it again.
Yeah, MSU felt good. The Rotten Apple, thanks so much for your 10-year super chat. I'm baffled by the Thousand Suns placement. I would put them at very strong or balanced. What puts them over the edge?
It's really the fact that they can apply so much offense so easily and readily and consistently, and you can't really stop it. So, +1 to hit, +1 to wound, reroll hits, reroll wounds, dev wounds on a 10-man Terminator unit is a ludicrous amount of damage capability. Magnus literally rains mortal wounds at you, and he also benefits from +1 to hit, +1 wound, reroll hits, reroll wounds. The combination of Cabal points stacking and how they do with command points basically means that you can essentially use the same stratagems twice, your very powerful stratagems, and then you can, of course, also teleport to make it very deliverable. So all this in conjunction just means your alpha strikes are far too powerful, and then Magnus defensively, with the 2 blanket saves that he can get from Cabal points, +2 rerolls he can get, basically means he doesn't really die to the big shots, and by nature of 40k, the small shots don't get it done either.
Yeah, you need mortal wounds, and once again, only Eldari can just auto-pump out tons of mortals.
Or opposing Thousand Suns.
Or opposing Thousand Suns mirror matchup. All right, thanks so much to Nicholas for joining the War Room Silver tier. Really appreciate your support, and welcome. Then we've got Ree here. He's been joining us for 5 months. What units do you think you would use in World Eaters now? Everything seems expensive and easy to kill. How are you feeling?
Yeah, everything is expensive as needs to kill, and that's part of the challenge to playing World Eaters. I would still think you're taking 3 Exalted 8-pounds and 3 regular 8-pounds. Those are your money makers. Couple Corn Berserkers I can get behind. They're relatively unimpressive, but with all your buffs they start to hit. Their ability to actually get, when they get shot at now, they move towards you, that's the same, but they can actually go into engagement range. So you can use that to really mess with your opponent's ability to move to certain spots of the table. It's less for actually running across the table and getting into close combat by being shot. That's, you're just going to die. But you can use it to make your opponent not go in certain specific spots. It's a skill-based army for sure, because it's a combat army. You're basically going to just want to take options for controlling where your opponent go and punishing them for trying to play the mission, as well as killing them.
Yeah, I've heard Jack also mention running a Jackal combo. A lot of Jackals on the table with an invul and feel no pain. That can be difficult to deal with for a lot of armies too.
I'm sure Jack's going to go into that in detail in the War Room as well. Right now we're breaking down all these factions, learning them ourselves, so that we can then break them down to you in a exactly how they operate kind of manner.
Yeah, with a lot of different list options.
Yeah.
So we got Antonio Smith, $5 super chat. Spent 3 years getting a fully painted 3K Admech army. I'm sure it looks gorgeous. At least I have Blood Angels. So Admech, like in the game I played, or the couple games that I played in practice, I actually beat Drukhari, and
that's really good.
I did lose to Tyranids, but I think they're going to struggle against those bigger stuff. But Admech have access to allies, and they can ally in a knight and some Imperial agents, and I think that dramatically helps them.
What I'm thinking...
They're still bad, but helps a lot.
Yeah. What I'm thinking here, Mr. Siegs, is essentially that 40k is a cycle. You know, good armies go up, good armies come down. Admech are good in half a 9th edition. Now they're not so great. It will come back. You know, don't get too.
I feel kind of targeted. Like 4 of my armies are down in the doldrums.
Welcome to the club.
You have demons and can't spam. What are you talking about? Eldari?
Man,
Thousand Suns?
You've been playing this game for far too little time compared to me. I have seen the waves.
I'm sure you have.
I have. All right.
But at least Necrons are good. All right.
Fighting Dice, the $5 super chat. Devastating wounds should be replaced, so only melee weapons. Only change my mind. I actually think Dev wound should just be 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage instead of nonsense. But, you know, there's a lot of ways you could approach fixing it.
It definitely should not stack with anti. Anti procking Dev wounds on a 2-up or a 4-up, too strong, and then Fate Dice manipulating things to be Dev wounds. No, absolutely not.
Marshall Martin's $10 super chat. In this new edition with -1 AP across the board and a lot of vehicles getting 2-up armor saves, plus you can shoot while engaged /tank shock /easy access cover. Why are we not seeing vehicles /monsters being in? To a degree, it's the access, well, it's brand new and early, so you very well might see that develop as the meta grows, but the accessibility of Dev wounds really bypasses all of that durability like cover and -1 AP and 2-up armor. So in the face of things like Towering Knights and Wraith Knights and D-Cannons and Wraith Lords, you pretty much gonna die trying to run vehicles into those top tier armies. Now, if they nerf those interactions, then yeah, I think vehicles are gonna be great.
Well, I think vehicles are great. It is, yes, Thousand Sons and Eldar are unique in being able to just delete anything in the game. But below that, those other top armies are up there because they can either very efficiently deal with vehicle spam or have vehicle spam themselves that's very hard to deal with, like Knights. So I think vehicles are great. You can pretty much spamming them in most armies. Even my Admech army has a bunch of Scorpius tanks that have a 2-up save, -1 AP from the army rule, the protector, and then count as in cover. And they can be just very difficult for a lot of armies to deal with. That alone is a very strong core. I also run a lot of vehicles in my Tau list.
Matt O with another $5 super chat. Also, have you tried the Eversur yet? I know there's tons of good Imperial agents to pick from, which is cool. I'm not playing Imperial armies as of right now, so I have not tried the Eversur.
Yep, I haven't tried the Eversur. I think the Calidus is the strongest, and then if you want a cheap one, just bring the Vindicare and have him sit in a corner and maybe snipe something. But the Eversur, he's the more combat one. He's a little janky, kind of like objective defending piece, but I haven't used him in any of my lists yet.
Turdstain Jimmy with the $5 super chat. Again, excellent name. World leaders seem balanced around the fact that Angron can revive despite the mechanic isn't a certainty. It could very well be auto-include Angron and try to revive him. That's like not a reliable plan, so I don't love it, but it doesn't happen rarely. Like, it's not hard to roll trip 6s on 8 dice with the rerolls that you get.
We got the Clavin with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much. I'd love to see Death Guard Contagion go to set size, -1 strength, -2 strength turn 3, or toughness. Combo's good with whatever HB is, and sticky objectives, increases durability. I think, so the thing is, with the increased toughness of the game, Death Guard's -toughness aura did not stack with that.
Yeah,
because obviously it'd be really punishing to infantry if it scaled with vehicles. So it's tricky.
The best thing you can do is hope your Strength 4 Bolter is shooting a Toughness 8 tank to knock it to Toughness 7. Or, some double toughness number to knock it down a peg so you go from winning on 6 to winning on 5. So that's where your Contagion actually has relevant value, but that's also so contingent on your opponent's specific toughness value.
If these guys are the slowest army in the game, they should have one of the best durability buffs in the game. They should have a very good Feel No Pain, access to -1 damage or whatever. Some strong defensive mechanic to keep their models alive for multiple turns.
Yeah. Okay. We've got a $5 super chat from Dossier2. I play Dark Angels, not counting Desolation Squads. What would be a good core for that army to build off of for a tournament? Deathwing Knights is a great core. The Raven Wing, add some speed, mission plan, just general offense. I think those two are great elements. Mm-hmm. Desolation Wings are just busted, but you don't need those to play the army.
Yeah. Skipped up a bit. Here we go.
Okay. So many super chats. Thank you all.
We got Mikkel G. Thank you so much for your super chat. With the new codex coming out, do you think it's reasonable for Tyranids' anti-tank options are so lacking? What units do you think Tyranids need right now? So this is true of a lot of factions, Tau too, where they're medium-ish anti-tank before. The stuff that was at Strength 8, Strength 9, it stayed at Strength 8, Strength 9. Mm-hmm. That really should have went up to Strength 10 or 11-ish, and then had some of the other weapons stay around Strength 7, Strength 8. So Tyranids realistically only have Zoanthropes as good anti-tank. Exocrines can hopefully punch up, but frankly, I think that some of those weapons should just be rescaled a little bit to help with a profile. Maybe have 2 different profiles or something. Yeah. But I think Tyranids need a new monster that is long-range anti-tank.
Or, take the Tyrant effects and give them a good gun.
Or the Exocrine.
Or the Exocrine, yeah. Johannes with a $5 super chat. If Fate Dice could not proc Dev Wounds, where do you think Eldar would be? That's only part of it. I think Eldar would just be, instead of, is this real, it would just be S tier, just
top S tier.
They have Phantasm, they have a million speedy things, they have great offense, they have good defense. Fate Dice can be used to still basically make an avatar with Fortune unkillable, Wraith Knight with Unfortune unkillable. The Dev Wounds just makes it comically broken, but it is still a great army without it. There's so many things with Eldar going right.
Just remove Dev Wounds from that codex, and it's still the best army in the game. It's just not towering above Thousand Sons.
As a or a $5 super chat from Claw. As a 9th Ed Necron player, I'm just here to flex on Death Guard and admin players getting reanimated on Sun. Six, how you feel about that?
I mean, they're not killing the 20-man warrior blob, I'll tell you that. They can try and tie it up. The best thing to do is just throw stuff in to tie it up. Flex
away Angron Claw. It's like a wheel. You know, different armies go up, different armies come down. When you're on top, just enjoy. Just enjoy. Soviet Comubot, $5 super chat. What do you guys think about Sisters of Silence? They seem like a decent, cheap trash unit for Custodes, especially as they can come in squads of 4. Jack actually ran Sisters of Silence in his Custodes against my Genestealer Cults. I did not want Jack to have trash in his Custodes army, so I killed them all on turn 2 with my Genestealers showing up. They're pretty good until I died. You know, yeah, that's what they're here for.
Custodes need some sort of cheap element, whether you go to the Imperial Agents or you take Sisters of Silence. At least they have an inbuilt one that they can use. And anti-psychic abilities might be powerful depending on, you know, Eldar and Thousand Sun staying up there.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got Greg Lambert here. Thoughts on a Flamer / Harpoon Chaos Knight Tyrant with the Armor of Contempt enhancement? Seems to be a beast against other vehicles.
That is the sauce. That is the core of John's Chaos Knight army, is having that Valiant stand in the middle of the table and soak up all your opponent's damage while it overwatches things to oblivion. Yeah, that's probably the single strongest thing about that book.
You've hit the nail on the head, Greg. That's your damage dealer. The rest of your army is stat checking and battle shocking.
We got Mustafa Alisi. Thank you so much for $5 super chat. If they remove Fate Dice and Devastating Wounds and up the price of the Wraith Knight Fire Prison by 50, would that fix Eldar?
It would help a lot.
It would help a lot. They still have, there's depth to this book. It's like the Tyranids book from the last edition. It's like you're going to hit it 2-3 times. Guess what? The underlying core is still strong.
We haven't talked about Warwalkers and Vipers with reroll hits, reroll wounds, Bright Lances one time. That's already really good. That's enough to be better than most of the armies in the game right there, and that's not even being mentioned as problematic. You know, like Siegs was saying, it's like whack-a-mole with his broken.
Yeah, or Wraithguard. We haven't even talked about.
Talked about Wraithguard. Yeah. Paul Sheard with the £5 super chat. Surely Divergent chapters are better than Basic Marines, so they can field the exact same units and rules, but have options of other tools on top.
Like I said, we are ranking them based on their unique rules instead of taking Gladius. So regular Space Marine image is Gladius, which is the best way to play Space Marines, most of us think, and then how their unique chapter lines up. Where Deathwatch and Dark Angels are basically equivalent because they have a very good unique rule that you might want in certain builds, whereas Black Templars slightly worse than running regular Gladius, maybe. And then below that is Blood Angels and Space Wolves, who are running their unique stuff. It just isn't as good as Gladius.
Right. And it's also, we're kind of ranking them on how good their unique data sheets are, like Wolfen, for example, or leave a lot to be desired. Like Hammers. Sleepy Gamer with a $5 super chat. As someone who wants to start Dark Angels, what units besides Termi should I pick up?
Talonmasters.
Ravenwing in general.
Talonmasters are incredible.
Desolators, it's just a Space Marine staple today.
Desolation Marines. The Lion is very good.
Lion's an auto-take.
I don't know.
Magnus the Blue, 400 HUFs. Don't know what that is, but thank you. Thoughts on Astra Militarum's Aegis defense line?
It is their fortification. John has actually been talking about it behind the scenes here and wants to go get one. So if that's enough for John to get excited about it, then yeah, he might actually run it in his list.
Nice. Okay, Steve can't be with the $5 super chat. Hey Worm, keep up your great work. I just wondering, in the shooting phase, do you or your opponent choose what model takes the damage needed? Your opponent chooses which model to take the save. They can't choose a leader, and if a model's already wounded or been allocated to save that turn, it has to go on that model until that model is dead. So be very mindful, especially when you're talking units like crisis suits with different weapons and stuff, which model takes the wound and which weapons you shoot at it.
Exactly, and which models are in line of sight, which ones aren't.
So there's a whole order of operations to how you optimally shoot your weapons to get maximum damage out of them and minimize your opponent's durability potential. And that's all stuff we teach in our 10-minute tip series in the War Room. So you can check that out with your free membership that John McCardell may have gifted you, or that you can subscribe right now for that 3-day free trial.
Yep, theworm.vhx.tv. Then we've got Jay here with a 2 Canadian super chat. How many hecatons would you take in LOV? I've taken them a couple of times. They insta-die to anti-tank. You'd be surprised. It's 2-up save. They can get cover now. But, man, have they got obliterated by Dark Lances in the Drukhari game. And in the other games, they basically did nothing. Minimal. Hearthguard are the sauce. Spend your points on Hearthguard. Everything else, MSU, can die. You don't want other expensive stuff because you run out of things to sacrifice.
D-Gen, who's been a member for 7 months, thanks so much for your support. I'm a Tau player, and I have a rough time on how I'm supposed to play Tau. I know Lone Operative everywhere. Well, what about the opponent tanks?
The thing is, you let them you move block them, slow them down, force them to be, in the center of the table, and just wail on them in multiple turns. Tower not going to pick up tanks in one turn. If you run the 6-man crisis unit with lethal hits, it can, but that's a lot of points all in one basket.
And it kills itself.
And could potentially overcharge if you're running all those cyclics. So instead, just chip them down, and then when they finally get close, put your full firepower in, and you will kill them. But you have to slow them down. You need to use your movement tools.
£5 super chat from Christos Margitopoulos. I don't think I butchered that, but I don't think I did it right either. Apologies. £5 super chat. I am playing around with Thousand Suns lists. How would a list of Thousand Suns without Magnus look like? How would you use Vortex Beast? Vortex Beast, I kind of just like to jam up in the middle of the table. It forces my opponent to put their efforts into killing them, and it's far too much effort for the lack of reward that they receive when they actually put one down. So they overcommit to killing a Vortex Beast, and then I have a lot of stuff exposed. If they don't kill my Vortex Beasts are just like doing mortals and standing on objectives, scoring secondaries. Yep. Without Magnus, you just have more points, so you could look at Demons as like filling your points out, getting more mission play, getting like Fate Weaver in there, getting Lord of Changes in there, getting Flamers in there. You could also just look at taking a second Terminator brick, I think is pretty strong. But Magnus is such a force multiplier and a devastation monster himself, and he's super hard to kill. He's just part of the package to me.
He's amazing. If you like Magnus, this is the best time to run him.
£5 super chat for the Rotten Apple. Played my first game with Chaos Space Marines yesterday. Abaddon plus 10 Terminators, rerolling hits and wounds and sustain hits is sick. Did 18 Mortals versus some Paladins. You sure did. That is the Wombo combo. Abaddon 10 Terminators writes itself. Excellent job. Todd Silber with the second $5 super chat. Sold on Shalaxi. Nick, proud of your success. Last 5 years I've been away. By the way, you play Harlequinns out of GT. You can wear the the real life Harley suit of armor I made. So Todd does make some old fashioned medieval armor suits and stuff.
Cool.
It's really cool.
A Harlequin suit, that would be sweet.
I know. Maybe I'll go ahead and do that.
Death Jester hat.
Good to see you're back in the game, Todd. Glad you're coming out of the woodworks. Demons for life. Thanks for your support. And then Relic Scumpin with a $5 super chat. Personally, do you guys plan on trying to list build around tactical or fix, primary or damage brush with the armies you guys are most excited about? Different armies should play the game differently. So for my GSC, I am a very tactically flexible army, but I could also do fix. Like behind enemy lines plus investigate signals, or deploy teleport armors rather. There's two great fix secondaries I can just make my game plan. Or if my opponent gives me some more options, I can just take fix stuff. Some armies don't have built-in fixed options. Like Space Marines are pretty much going to have to play tactical most of the time, unless their opponent gives up some stuff.
Yeah, so me personally, I have been typically running tactical because I think a lot of armies that don't have easy access to CP regen or have very good strats where they want consistent CP like being able to discard one to gain a CP.
That's a great point, too.
Yep.
You can actually cycle through them more, and you get bonus points for achieving a mission when you draw it as a tactical one as opposed to choosing as a fixed one. It really helps escalate that scale a lot more. What I find is you really want to write a list that can kind of do a lot of different things with its cheap trash elements, and with that you can pretty much make tactical work for most factions.
Yep, so for joining the Discord community, if you've joined through YouTube, you just go to your settings on your Discord profile, go to Connections, and then click the YouTube icon. Follow the instructions, and it'll add you to our Discord with the appropriate permissions, and then you can accept the rules and all that stuff. If you sign up on our VHX site, under Forums, there's a thread called Discord, and it has the link and all the info for joining in there.
Yeah. And then finally a $5 super chat from Dominic Galliano. Do we really think that we'll have meaningful changes so soon after the index is coming out? As a Votann player, I really don't want to run 30 Hearthguard.
So cool, though.
Feel you on that. Siegs is like building Hearthguard as we speak here. But I genuinely think that we will see some index changes soon. They have proven time and time again in the most recent of history that they're willing to do it. Deathwatch, nerfed literally within 24 hours of a preview. Votann, nerfed not even before it came out. Harlequin Voidweavers, last year, nerfed 1 week after it came out. When they release something, they fix it. It's becoming precedential.
It's because they like the game. They're hobbyists themselves. Right. They want it to be good. They want people to enjoy 40k. Obviously, there's a lot of things that can be toned down and fixed or buffed up. And us being vocal and letting them know about them because they, is going to help them fix it faster. Basically.
Dominic, I'm sorry I didn't get it perfect, but I did try my best on that pronunciation. Reading not the strong suit. That's what quitting's for.
But overall, I mean, that's a great way to end the stream here. Thank you so much, everybody who is joining us. Hope you enjoyed this stream. Like we said, this is impressionistic because obviously it's still at the beginning of the edition, and there's a lot of matchups to still be played, a lot of lists to be refined, but we're going to be doing a ton of that over the coming weeks. And there's hope because they fixed Deathwatch over the course of 9th edition. There were continuous balance updates that actually impacted the game. I think they'll come back to that. How quickly, we'll have to see. But frankly, like I said, they really want the game to be fun and people to enjoy it and play it. And because of that, I know that they'll make changes in the future.
Yeah, before I give my parting thoughts, I wanted to take a second and do a $5 super chat for Tylan Blass. Tuned to 6 Blade Guard veterans plus Justiciar plus Chaplain in a Land Redeemer worth $8.35. I don't think so personally, but I've not seen it on table. It's definitely powerful, for sure. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Really hope you enjoyed this video. Like Siegs was just saying, like I've been saying, the game is a little wild in Wild West right now. All these are impressionistic, and they're based purely on competitive potential that we see within the codexes and just kind of the raw power that they're demonstrating as so far. Time will tell, see how good things actually get. And as Games Workshop actively tries to nerf, buff, help rebalance the game in this new and exciting time, I'm sure this tier list will have to change, and maybe we'll do some more of them. So if you like this kind of content, do us a favor and like the video. It really helps us continue producing these kinds of video pieces. Subscribe to the channel, helps us get to more and more viewers. We hit record high streams on this. We had 4,000 live viewers. We have 2,100 people viewing right now. I can't tell you how much that means to us. Like, literally, thank you all for joining us on this adventure, and thank you so much for showing your support. Show us by clicking that subscribe button. It'll help us grow this channel even more and even faster, and we keep reinvesting back into the channel. You can see all our production quality's kind of gone up. I've had people messaging me about it. It really means the world to see you guys supporting us so we can come back and support you. Please leave a comment. I'm sure this controversial tier list is controversial. Tell us what you liked, what you didn't like, what you think. If you think we're crazy, if you like Siegs' new haircut, let us know. We'd love to hear all about it. And if you're interested in actually getting better at Warhammer, learning the game and becoming your best, do yourself a favor and check out the 3-day free trial for our War Room. It's a magical land where we have so much content, all centered on getting you better at Warhammer. Coaching games where we don't just play the game, we explain all the thought processes in real slow and nice succinct verbiage so you can really understand what we're doing, as well as 10-minute tips so you can learn the little tactical nuances that are applicable to every army. Faction Fundamental series on its way so you know how to play every faction, and then soon we'll be getting those master classes up and going, which were a huge hit towards the end of 9th edition.
Definitely. This week we've got Tau vs. Space Marines coming up on YouTube. That's going to be on Wednesday. We've also got 2 other awesome matchups. Nick already mentioned one, Adeptus Custodes versus GSC, which is already live in the War Room. I recently released it early for everybody to enjoy over the weekend. And then coming up, many more games and also tons of additional content. In addition, if you liked our streams from last year where we would break down all the faction data sheets and rank them in tier lists, we'll be going back to that in the future as well. So every faction will get attention, and anything else that Games Workshop puts out, we will be on top of it.
Before I sign off, everybody, I just wanted to address Dakota Skiles 5, Sykes, $5 super chat, Magnus, Armon, Infernal, Exalted, Sorcerer, Termi Sorcerer, MVB, 10 Cultists, 4 units of 5 Rubiks, 10 Scarab Terminators, Chaos Spawn, no enhancements. Thoughts? I think that's a great Thousand Suns list right there.
That's a great core.
That's right, the core.
Mutilith Vortex Beasts are bananas.
Money in the bank. So thanks so much for watching, everybody. Really hope you enjoyed it. Again, just to reiterate, please like the video, subscribe to our channel, and leave us a comment telling us what you thought. It helps the algorithm gods. You know about that tech stuff. And then also, do yourself a favor and check out that War Room in the link below for your 3-day free trial. It's literally free. We're not a gym. You can cancel it whenever, but you won't because it's awesome.
Yep, and you get access to our awesome mobile app.
And the Discord.
And the Discord community.
Which is popping and buzzing and so excited about all the new exciting combos that everyone is discovering in real time.
I know I've been posting my list in there, all the different variants that I've been trying.
I think we all have. It's popping, Siegs. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for watching. I think that's it for now. We'll catch you later, and stay tuned.
So long, everybody. Really appreciate all your support, and we'll see you soon.